Welcome to another edition of Vikings Vintage, where we talk Vikings history. As you know, we've done seasons. We've done we've done the first two Super Bowl seasons. So this week we're doing the third Super Bowl season, and we'll probably do the fourth Super Bowl season in a couple weeks, or maybe next week. We don't know. But so tonight, 74 season is as you see from the thumbnail.
Vikings, let's win this game. Score Vikings, on a winning name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Score Vikings, let's go.
You have the thumbnail tonight, don't you?
Me? What?
The thumbnail picture. You have that.
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
have it. It's right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Because what I do is I look up the year that we're talking about, and I look up like team photo or whatever of that year, and it had 74 Vikings yearbook. It had the picture. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, that's the media guide.
Yeah.
The other thing I have from 74 is this, actually. Let's see. Oh, I have to get 74. 74 is on its way here.
Yeah. Okay.
I bought 74, but it's a lot like these right here. And I used to have these as a kid. And the only year I'm missing is 1974.
Well, the one thing you'll find out as we do the history of this year is the Vikings didn't have very many losses that year, but the way they got the losses was kind of weird.
Right.
Because they only, we'll talk, when we get into the schedule, you'll see what I'm talking about the weirdness of the losses.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of weird.
Well, the year started 1974 in the NFL altogether. That was the year that they moved the goalposts out of the end zone and put them in the back of the end zones, because they used to be in the right on the goal line, and they moved them out of the end zone, and that was in 74. They lightened up on a lot of the passing because they wanted teams to throw the ball more, so they changed that rule, and we had our first labor unrest. The first game of the preseason, the Viking veterans didn't play. The only ones that played in those games in the NFL were free agents and draft choices. The NFL veterans basically had a lockout. They went on strike. It lasted maybe a week. So, I mean, the season, you could kind of the legal stuff and the player stuff was starting in 74. And then there were rule changes, and then, the Vikings, they had two number one draft choices.
So the strike was from July 1st until August 10th.
Yep. Yeah, and the Vikings started camp like late July, and they didn't. What happened was the veterans didn't play in the first game. It was the rookies. So
yeah.
We opened up the season against Denver. It was a loss, but
you know what 1974 also was?
What's that?
That was the first season without Bill. That was the last season without Bill Belichick being a head coach.
Or being some kind of a coach?
Being some kind of coach. From 75 until 2023, Bill Belichick was either a head coach or a coach in the NFL.
That's 40 friggin' years. That's 50
48 years.
Yeah. My God. I wasn't okay. Just to give you an idea of how long ago 1974 was, I was in second grade. I was in second grade.
I wasn't even here yet.
You weren't even thought of.
Well, no, I was thought of. I'm sure my mom was thinking about me at that time. My brother was alive by then, but I was thought of. But
right.
The greatness didn't come until the year later.
I turned 8 in October. I was in second grade. But yeah, that's how long ago it was, and a lot of the changes that we saw as the NFL went on started in '74, and the Vikings went into training camp. Once they got everybody there, they were going to repeat. It was basically there wasn't any, there wasn't a they were 12-2 in '73. Everybody expected them to be 12-2 or better in '74. And they almost were, except for a couple of breakdowns in games late. So they had a lot of injuries in '74, though, too. They did. Chuck Foreman became the game maker, the game player that he was. He became the kind of the star of the offense in '74. Defensively, we had a ton of injuries on defense. Gary Larson.
74 was the first year of the new overtime rule.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Sudden death overtime. Before the game just ended in a tie.
Yeah, if the game's ended in regulation in a tie, that's why you would have some.
It was 10 minutes, not 15, too.
For the overtime?
Yeah, overtime was 10 minutes.
No, it was 15, sudden death.
And then they changed it back. Then they changed it to 15, then they changed it back to 10.
I always remembered it as 15.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was sudden death. Whoever scored first.
Oh, you know what?
Won.
By the way it's written, it makes no sense.
Okay, yeah, it was.
I'm sorry, Wikipedia, you need an editor.
You know what? You've got people that go into Wikipedia and they'll edit it, and they'll do it just to piss people off. They'll put something up there that's not even actual.
The goalpost, you were right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Missed field goals. The defensive team took position at the line of scrimmage or the 20-yard line, whichever was farthest from the goal line.
Right.
And then 1994 is when they moved it to where the kick was missed.
Yep, they changed that before.
Kickoff was moved to the 35-yard line, previously the 40-yard line, to reduce touchbacks.
Which didn't help the Vikings because Fred Cox did not have that strong of a leg. So average teams were starting on offense at about their own 20, 30, 34-yard line.
Upon returns, members of the kicking team cannot go beyond the line of scrimmage until the ball is kicked, except for the player at the farthest end of the side of the snapper, the gunners. The original rule change would have prohibited any player from crossing the line of scrimmage prior to the ball being kicked.
Yep.
An eligible pass receiver can only be contacted once by defenders, and the receiver has gone 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. So that's when you're talking about when they wanted to open the offense.
Yeah.
Then defensive team commits an illegal use of hands, arms, or body foul from behind the line of scrimmage. The penalty would be assessed from the previous spot, not the spot of the foul. I guess before it was from the spot of the foul. Penalties of offensive holding, illegal use of hands, tripping were reduced from 15 to 10 yards. Tripping was returned to a 15-yard penalty in 2023. Wide receivers blocking back towards the ball within 3 yards from the line of scrimmage may not block below the waist.
Yep.
And then, in addition to on-the-field rule changes, the league eliminated the future list of players a team could sign without placing them on active roster. The future list had been formalized by the league in 1965 and existed over a decade before that.
That futures list, was that futures list a taxi squad?
It was renamed the Practice Squad in 1977.
Okay.
So the Practice Squad makes much more sense.
Right. Well, they had the Practice Squad, and before that they had the Taxi Squad, and then they just made it the Practice Squad, which now we know it as a Practice Squad.
But it says that 74 was the biggest year of rule changes in the NFL.
Yeah, that was the most rule changes they had since the merger. And I think, they didn't even have that many rule changes. When the merger happened, I think they just kind of combined everybody's rules together. Yeah. The AFL and the NFL, they kind of merged them in, except for the whole overtime thing. Never had overtime until 74.
What up, Gigi? I'm not sure if this is Jamie or Casey. It's probably Jamie. I don't think Casey's. But yeah. But so the first draft pick in the 74 was Ed Too Tall Jones.
Mm-hmm. Went to the Cowboys.
Some people thought he was too tall to play.
They didn't think he was going to make it. They didn't.
He was like what, 7'2"? let's see.
No, he was 6.
Oh, he was 6'10". He was 6. He was 6 3/4, so pretty much 6'10".
6'10", yeah.
Yeah. But I knew he was tall. That's tall for a, you know.
Yeah, he was. They said he was kind of a work in progress, but he did okay. You know, did all right.
Yeah.
I think when he left and went and did the boxing thing, he actually came back a better football player after his boxing stint.
Got his hands.
Yeah,
faster.
his hands got faster, and he was an all-pro after that. It helps that he had at that time he had Harvey Martin on the other side. That helped. But I mean, he could play. He was good. Who was the number 2 draft choice?
Let me see. They brought him up specifically. 74 draft. Okay, so Bo Matthews with the Chargers.
Oh, he was a
back.
bust. He was a bust.
John Hicks. Giants took third. John Hicks.
He was from Michigan. He played guard. Didn't have the longest career. I think he maybe played 5 or 6 years, and that was it.
So there's a couple Pro Bowlers taken. Looks like there's only there's only 2 Hall of Famers taken in the first round. A lot of Pro Bowl. There's like 5 Pro Bowlers. So John Dutton for the Baltimore.
Baltimore. He was he played defensive end with Baltimore when they were known as the Sack Pack, and then he got traded to the Cowboys.
The first Hall of Famer taken in that draft was Randy Gradishar,
the middle linebacker for the Broncos.
Yep. The Vikings took Fred McNeil.
We took Fred McNeil and Steve Riley. We had 2.
And then Henry Lawrence was the other Pro Bowler from
the Raiders. Yep.
And Lynn Swan was taken 21st.
Oh, that's right, Lynn Swan with the Steelers.
And then Roger Carr was a All Pro.
He was a good receiver with the Colts.
Yeah.
For a short amount of time, he was a very good receiver.
And Steve Riley was taken 25th.
Yep, we took Steve Riley. You know the
John Holland was taken in the second round by Minnesota.
So was Matt Blair.
And then Steve Nelson was a Pro Bowler. Keith Fahnhorst,
both from Minnesota.
And then Dave Casper, Hall of Famer.
From another one from Minnesota.
Jack Lambert, Hall of Famer.
Oh, from Kent State, yes.
Devin Williams, Pro Bowler. And then Matt Blair, Pro Bowler.
Delvin Williams, running back?
Delvin. Delvin Williams.
Delvin Williams, yeah. Played with the Niners and the Dolphins.
Yep. And then Pro Bowler in round 3 was Danny White. Quarterback, Cowboys.
Yep, quarterback for the Cowboys, punter. He's doing the punting for years.
Nat Moore, the first helicopter receiver. I think we were. I'm trying. I don't know if I was at that game because I lived in South Florida at the time, so I'm not sure when he did that helicopter if we were at the game or if we were.
No, that was when he did that helicopter. That was in the Meadowlands.
Okay, so then it was on TV.
Yeah, that was in the Meadowlands when he did the helicopter.
The Vikings took Scott Anderson before that.
Oh, Scott. Okay, Scott Anderson. My God. He was a head case if there ever was one.
Then the next Hall of Famer was picked in round 4, pick 82, John Stallworth.
Steelers.
Yep. And then Tony Bell was taken by the Baltimore Colts, defensive back, Bowling Green. How did it feel being drafted?
I wouldn't know. It wasn't me. Oh my God. Well, it's even funnier because remember in the 80s, the Cardinals had a linebacker named Anthony Bell. And everybody's like, dude, you're playing football? I'm like, no. If I was, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah. And the Vikings took Mike Townsend in the 4th round.
Who did they take?
Mike Townsend.
Yeah, he didn't make the team.
Next pick after him was Mike Brola, from a quarterback from Stanford. He was a Pro Bowler.
Oh, Mike Barilla
Okay.
with the Eagles.
And then Frank Lemaster was taken by the Eagles.
Linebacker with the Eagles.
Yeah. So, and then I don't think there's any more There's one more. Oh, actually, there is one more Hall of Famer. So, a couple more Pro Bowlers. Henry Childs.
Yeah, he went to the Saints. He was at the Saints.
Right. And then Steve Odom.
He was a Packer.
Next Hall of Famer is Mike Webster.
Oh yeah, Mike. That was the draft class that built the Steelers.
Yeah.
That was the draft class that built the Steelers, and of course they went to the Super Bowl. Here's a funny thing about that draft for the Vikings. The three of the guys that we drafted that year in the top two, Matt Blair, Fred McNeil, Steve Riley, they're no longer with us. They're gone. Mike Webster is gone. There's quite a few guys from that draft that are no longer with us. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but it was a good draft. And the Vikings going into the season, the talk was already that they were old. And then what happened in the Super Bowl was Miami exposed it. So, you had to get younger on defense, especially. Hence, they drafted McNeil and Blair, who ended up taking over for both Winston and Hilgenberg. You had to get stronger on the line too, which is where they moved Doug Sutherland into the starting lineup on the defensive line. He was splitting time with Gary Larson. By the end of the year, Sutherland was starting. And then in the secondary, we lost Bobby Bryant. Bobby Bryant got hurt, I believe, after the Cowboy game. He was gone for the year because he didn't play in the Super Bowl. Jackie Wallace was a starter. And we had a lot of injuries on defense. Roy Winston and Hilgenberg were both hurting. Jeff Seaman missed some time. Amos Martin started for him, but really the only guys that were healthy for the most year were Page, Eller, Marshall, and Paul Krause.
Yeah. So the last Hall of Famer was taken in round 5. There was only 2 more All Pros after that. Billy White Shoes Johnson.
White Shoes.
He was taken round 15.
Wow.
You talk about someone overcoming where they were drafted.
Wow.
He did what, the chicken dance? What was
He did that thing with his legs, the celebration in the end zone.
Yeah.
Or it looked like the funky chicken if you think about it.
Yeah.
He did that, and then he played for Houston, then he went to Canada, and then he came back and played for the Falcons.
Actually, there was a Hall of Famer who was undrafted free agent.
From 74?
Yep. Guess what team he played for?
What 74 undrafted? Give me a hint.
Offensive lineman. I'm sorry. No, sorry. That's the guy above him. Safety. South Carolina State.
South Carolina State. What color is the jerseys of the team?
Well, if I tell you that, you're going to get it.
No, I doubt it.
Are you talking about the college?
No. Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Free agent.
Yep.
Safety.
Out of MEAC.
Not Kenny Houston.
He's a Hall of Famer, and there's a theme going.
There's a theme going?
Yeah. This team already has 3 Hall of Famers out of this draft.
Oh. Donnie Shell.
Yes.
Okay.
That's amazing. You get that many Hall of Famers in one season.
How did the Steelers? My God. Yeah, you put them with Ham and Green and Greenwood.
Yeah.
And you still had you had Kolb on the offense, Bradshaw, Harris, Blyer. My God.
And they still barely beat us.
Yeah, the refs actually helped them in that game.
Yeah.
the refs actually helped them in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Anybody that has never seen it, it's on YouTube. The complete game, it's on YouTube. And of all the Super Bowls, we were closest with the Steelers. Even though we couldn't run the ball, we were close. So, but like it's that one was, and there was a lot of shenanigans even before the Super Bowl. The team was put up in a really janky hotel, and it was just bad, and the NFL did not look out
A
for them.
janky hotel in New Orleans.
I mean, it was janky beyond janky. It could have been in the red light district. I don't know. But it was bad. Stu Voigt talks about it. He's like, that hotel was terrible.
Mike has a comment.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be an AFL team. Yeah.
Yep, we talked about it on that very first show.
Yeah. Yeah, Davey, you're right. That Larry Brown fumble is what screwed us. That would have been, that right there would have been a game changer, especially after, Matt blocked the punt. And, and you kind of felt momentum swing to the Vikings. You did. But yeah, I mean, we've got so many could have, what would haves, and just if they had just won one Super Bowl, and this was the one they could have won. This is why this one hurt the most, because they were closest in this Super Bowl. If you take away the yards that Franco Harris got on the ground, the game was close.
Norm Van Brocklin was also fired.
He got fired from Atlanta, didn't he?
2-6 when he got fired.
Yeah, he got fired.
Detroit Lions had to replace their head coach because he died.
He passed away before the season started. He had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Don McCaffrey. That's how Rick Forzano got the head coaching job.
Yeah.
And I think Dan Devine's last year was 74 with the Packers.
Weeb Eubanks also resigned.
Yep, Weeb Eubanks resigned. I don't know if Joe Namath played at all in 74. He was having knee problems really bad, and there was, he missed a lot of time.
Howard Schnellenberger was fired by the Colts.
Yeah, Schnellenberger got fired. Colts had hit bottom.
Yeah, the Bills. That was the first year of the Buffalo Bills with their current helmet with the buffalo with the red stripe. Before It was the standing buffalo.
Yep, that was
the Cowboys moved the TV numbers on their white jersey.
Yep.
The Chiefs switched to gray to white face mask. The Dolphins modified their helmet logo with the sunburst.
Chargers changed their uniforms altogether.
The Philadelphia Eagles switched from white to green helmets.
Okay, remember Philly had those damn near see-through uniforms? You could see their shoulder pads. It was like, yeah, that was the year they went to those jerseys. I mean, if you didn't think these were high school jerseys.
Yeah, and the Chargers went from powder blue to navy blue.
They went to the navy blue, which is what they were wearing in the Dan Fouts years.
Right.
Actually, the Vikings changed their uniforms too, because they went with the purple uniforms, the home uniforms. They had the stripes on the jerseys on the arm, where in 73 they didn't wear those jerseys, but they went to those jerseys primarily. Yeah, Mike, it was. Damn Cowboys.
We haven't talked about that season yet. We will, unfortunately.
That season is as much of a heartbreaker as 98. Maybe more so.
When we do that season, we're going to have to put this up for Tony.
Oh, God, yeah. Definitely. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, you know what, Davey? I think the NFL did that 2 years in a row with the Vikings, because from what I heard, the accommodations for the Super Bowl in New Orleans weren't better than Houston. I heard they were pretty bad too.
Well, that's because Dan Devine knew the writing was on the wall of how bad the Packers were.
Yeah, he just
See, Bob, you're gonna have Tony come through this screen.
That's the 75 game, Bob. I'm talking about 7. Don't get me started on 75. My blood pressure is right at what
I don't know if Bob is serious or if he just does that to get underneath your skin.
Well, if anybody knows me, they're like, it's like, you really want to piss Tony off? Just mention 75. It's just that's for me, that hurts more than 98 and 2000 and 2009. That just does. But yeah, I mean 74,
well, the truth is we shouldn't even have faced the Steelers in the Super Bowl. It should have been the Raiders.
Yeah. It should have been the Raiders.
And I think they get the Raiders that year too.
Yes, they do. But Pittsburgh went on the road. They went into Pittsburgh and dominated them. They literally dominated them. I mean, we beat the Rams, but we were kind of...
Well, the Rams and the Vikings were quote-unquote the best two teams in 74.
Yeah, that was the year that the Cowboys fell off. Cowboys didn't even make the playoffs. Matter of fact, I believe the Cardinals won the division. And I think the Redskins might have been wild card or flip or vice versa.
So the playoff teams in the AFC were Buffalo and Pittsburgh, Miami and Oakland, Washington, Los Angeles, St. Louis, and Minnesota.
Yeah.
In the NFC.
And I think Washington was the wild card.
Yeah, St. Louis game was not even close for Minnesota.
No, it wasn't. Played in Minnesota weather. It was played in Minnesota weather. But they just went out there and dominated it. That was actually the game where Lertzema said that, if you remember Conrad Dobler, he would say on interviews, the only other person he didn't get along with was Doug Sutherland. And that's because Sutherland bit him. And that's the playoff game. I don't know if it was a playoff game because we played the Cardinals in regular season too on a Monday night. I got when I talked to Bob Lertzema, I got the idea that it was the playoff game, and Sutherland did bite him. He did bite him.
Yeah, Mike, you're definitely going to join us for the 75 show.
Mike, don't get my blood pressure up, please. Yeah, they screwed us on the play before. He was out of bounds when he caught that pass. God. You know what, Davey? I remember going to school the next day, and when you're kids, the kids don't really know, so life goes on.
But the teachers probably had a different reaction.
The teachers, it bothered them. My dad didn't go to work.
I almost didn't go to work in 09.
Oh, I remember 09. It just, put it this way, I don't know which was worse, 09 or 98, because when we lost in 98, that Monday after the game felt like
our first dono. Woo.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much. Thanks, George. Well, there it is, folks.
Our cherry's been popped.
Yeah.
Thank you, George, so much. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, George. We appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, that day after that Atlanta game, it was like a fog here to Twin Cities. Air was just like deflated.
Yeah.
And it was the same way in 09. It was just like.
It reminds me of in 94. Because that's Tony Gwynn's a favorite baseball player. So I was, watching the World Series with the Twins.
Mm-hmm.
When the Twins got that lead and then they blew it, you could just feel like the air, like on the Padres sideline. You could just feel the air. Oh, hell, we're gone. So it's like, because even though the Padres have been to 2 World Series, they have never won a game in the World Series.
Right.
So so it's kind of like in my mind, because to be honest, I mean, with the Twins, they're I've seen the Twins have success, so it's so But the football is the Vikings are the one team I think everybody who's a Minnesota sports fan is the team that everybody wants. Like the Timberwolves are the best in the West, but no one cares. No one watches NBA in Minnesota. No one cares. I mean,
They're,
yeah,
they're watching basketball now, but it's usually the Wolves have never been this competitive, and they've actually never been this dominant. So this is new too.
They were competitive that one year. They had Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell, Kevin Garnett.
That was
but
that was 20 years ago. And at the same, and here's the funny thing: at the same time,
I need to feed my kids, Tony.
And at the same time that was happening, the Wild were in the playoffs.
Yep.
So we kind of
the Vikings were crappy that year, though.
Yeah, and the Vikings got knocked out of the playoffs thanks to who was the quarterback for which quarterback was that for the Cardinals?
The guy who's our quarterback coach,
Luke McCown.
Yeah, was it Josh or Luke?
I thought it was Luke.
He was one of the McCown brothers, but
I think it was Luke.
Nathan's the guy who caught it. Nathan Poole.
Yeah, and he got a damn ticker tape parade in Green Bay. Jeez.
Well, that they gave him the seat of the kitty. They gave him the key to
how pathetic are you as a fan base that you have to thank some dude from an opposing team? You give him a ticker tape parade because you made the playoffs? God. Jeez.
So the first game of the season that year was against, speaking of the Packers, was against the Packers.
Yeah, and they were the Packers.
32-17. Now, if we do have Packer fans who do watch us, who do come in here, and if you're under 40, then you've only heard about Favre and Rodgers. The Packers from 70 to 91 were probably the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they were. They won the division in 72, and that was a fluke because the Vikings shot themselves, and so did the Lions. The Vikings and Lions shot themselves in the foot. But 73 rolled around, they were right back to being horse crap. They were.
So,
and they couldn't get the quarterback position right. It was so bad they traded for John Hadel in the middle of 74 from the chart with the Rams.
Yeah. So Fred Cox with 20-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chester Marcoy. 19-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
John Brockington, 5-yard rush.
Mm-hmm.
Then Foreman, 18-yard. Foreman with 1 yard. Chuck Foreman, 3-yard. Fred Cox, 21-yard field goal. Steve Odom, 18-yard rush. And then Amos Martin, 15-yard special teams return for a fumble.
Yeah, he recovered. They tried to run a reverse on the kickoff, and they fumbled it, and he picked it up and ran it for a touchdown.
The Packers had less than 200 total yards in that game.
I think they have 4 turnovers.
They had 4 turnovers.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
3 fumbles.
Yep. And I believe the starting quarterback was Scott Hunter or Jerry Tagge.
Jerry Tagge.
Jerry Tagge. Okay.
Yeah, he was 9 of 20 for 102 yards.
He was just just bad.
The leading rusher was Brockington, 53 yards.
And Brockington, John Brockington was their workhorse back then. MacArthur Lane was still there. Yeah, he was the workhorse. He was their workhorse.
MacArthur Lane had 11 carries, 29 yards.
Yeah.
Chuck Foreman, 22 for 67, 3 touchdowns, 5 receptions, 32 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Reed, 17 for 64. And Ed Marinero, 4 for 16.
Yeah.
Tarkenton only completed 14 passes, and 9 of them were to the running backs.
That was the Viking offense. And don't forget now, Fran didn't have the strongest arm. So, him throwing deep downfield, if it was for John Gilliam, but he didn't have the strongest arm. Mike, I got to admit something. Those Quazzo years, put it this way. If Joe Cap stays here, we win at least 1 Super Bowl. And it's probably against the Colts in 70. I think I think if Cap sticks around, we do win a Super Bowl. Now, does that mean if I was thinking about this, does Tarkenton come back to Minnesota? Possibility. It's a possibility. Because Joe didn't play much longer after he went through what he went through with the free agency, and then he was out of football.
That is Mike's comment. That's I don't care if they beat him in the regular season and next afterwards.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
They would. Only one they didn't beat was the Raiders. The Raiders actually waxed them in the regular season the next year. But yeah. We beat the Dolphins in preseason. We were the first ones to beat them.
Yeah.
Made headline news. That was when preseason meant something. Now it doesn't, but it was when it meant something.
I don't know. Maybe this year KOC will play his quarterback.
He's gonna have to. He can't sit his starting offense with a new quarterback. They're gonna have to play in preseason. He's gonna have to play his veterans in preseason a little bit.
And so their next game was against the Lions. And that one
I remember watching that game. If you like offensive football, if you wanted to see scores, forget it. There was no offense in that game.
48 degrees with wind at 15 miles an hour.
Yeah. This is in Detroit. Detroit played outdoors. And it was sunny.
They played at Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, they played at Tiger Stadium. And the Vikings won 7-6. The only touchdown was Chuck Foreman.
11-yard rush.
11-yard rush. It was a draw play that he scored on. But yeah, the defense played their asses off.
The Vikings had 2 turnovers and they still won.
Yeah. Yep.
They only allowed 162 yards total.
Yeah, the defense was just on it. I mean, and the front four, the front four had a tendency to dominate the Lions every now and then, and that was kind of, if they needed a game to show their dominance, it was usually the Lions. That game was no exception. That game was no exception to the rule. They did it that game too.
Chuck Foreman almost had 100 yards rushing, 12 for 83.
Yeah.
Oscar Reed, 9 for 30. Dave Osborne, 3 for 8. John Gilliam, sorry. I would say Gilliam. Leading receiver, he had 4 for 87.
Yep. Oh, by the way, the Lions had a starting safety by the name of Charlie West, who had been traded in the offseason by the Vikings to the Lions. Oh, here's what we didn't.
Dick Duran was the other starter.
Dick Duran was the other. Here's what we didn't talk about. Now, this was a big, big thing. After the Super Bowl, during the 74 offseason, Vikings general manager Jim Finks resigned. He resigned because he got into it with the owner Max Winter. Jim Finks wanted ownership in the team. And Mike Lynn would not let him have it because, I can see where Finks was thinking. He helped build that team. He wanted ownership, and Max Winter wouldn't give it to him. So he basically resigned, which ushered in the era of Mike Lynn.
Yeah, the Vikings also traded Bob Lee and Lonnie Warwick.
They traded them in 73.
And then they got Bob Berry in the draft. Carl Gersbach and Clinton Jones to the Chargers.
Yeah, they were all traded in 73.
But these are the draft picks they got for them.
Okay.
The Vikings traded Bob Brown to New Orleans in exchange for New Orleans' 4th round pick. And then they traded their 4th round pick to the Bengals for Steve Olsen. The Vikings traded Gene Washington to the Broncos, and they got Rod Sherman back. The Vikings traded with the Colts. They got Charlie Stokes.
Charlie Stokes. Yeah, he ended up playing with a couple of other teams.
And then the Vikings traded Stokes to the Rams.
Yeah, that's where he went.
Yeah. And then the Vikings traded a draft pick to the Eagles for Ron Porter. So it looks like they got rid of better players than what they got.
And Ron Porter was a draft. We got Ron Porter in 73, so he was done by 74.
Yeah.
So we had to pay for that. John Beasley, what did we get for him?
Let's see.
I think he got traded to the Saints. Tight end.
Was that 74 or 73?
74.
She doesn't say. Does not have the Beasley on here. Let me get a pro reference.
Mike, I got to correct you on that. Jim Finks never won a Super Bowl. He had left the Bears to take over the Chicago Cubs. He built the Bears, but he did not. He wasn't there when they went to the Super Bowl. He went and joined the Chicago Cubs for a year and built them into a playoff team in the majors. And then he ended up in New Orleans. But yeah, he didn't get a Super Bowl with the Bears. But he built that Bears team. He built them. God, look at all those people that got rings.
Yeah, it goes back to all the people who have left Minnesota and won after they left.
Well, funny thing is, Jerry Burns got 2 rings with the Packers, and then he came to Minnesota. He was a defensive backs coach under Lombardi, 66 and 67. So who do we play third? Was that the Bears?
Well, I was just noticing something about the preseason.
Huh.
They did the exact same thing in the preseason that they did in the regular season when it comes to losses.
Oh, we had a tie.
No, they may have a tie, but that's not what I'm talking about.
What's that?
Other than Super Bowl, the first 2 games they played in the preseason, they lost.
Yeah, one of them was to the Dolphins.
Right, and then in the regular season they had 4 losses, but their 4 losses were back-to-back losses twice in a row.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Which we'll get when we get to that string. There's a story there too. But yeah, they lost to Denver with no veterans. And then Monday night they played the Dolphins with the veterans, and all you could hear was just Howard Cosell just basically blowing Larry Zonka. My God. It was annoying.
Do not put that out in the atmosphere, Mike.
Well, my girl will be happy. I won't.
Oh, Mama, you going to bed?
Good night, Mama. Yeah, Trish will be happy if that happens. And I want her team to win a Super Bowl, just not with Kirk Cousins.
I don't want a team. See, I'm the other way. I don't want a team who's never won before to win for Minnesota gets theirs.
I don't even care anymore. I just don't.
The third game was Chicago.
Yeah, and the Vikings had a couple of touchdowns called back by penalties.
11-7 was the final.
Yeah, I mean,
a safety. I think it was all over field goals. No, Steve Voigt got 11-yard touchdown pass. They must have missed the extra point.
Yeah. What's his name was not the most accurate kicker, Fred Cox, by this time. He just wasn't.
Yeah. So the safety was Hillenberger, tackled Parsons in the end zone.
Yeah, they botched a punt.
And then Stu Voigt, 11-yard pass from Tarkington. Fred Cox, 32-yard field goal. Then Gary Huff, 3-yard rush.
Yeah, and this was a year before the Bears drafted Walter Payton. So they didn't set the field on fire.
Ken Granberry.
Oh, Ken Granberry?
Yeah, and Dave Gagon were their running backs.
Yeah. They had Ron Bull, didn't they?
He's not. If he was on there, he didn't get any stats. It was Dave Gagnon, was Mike Granberry, Dave Gagnon, Jim Harrison, Perry Williams, and Don Rivers.
Okay.
Charlie Wade was their receiver. He had 6 catches, 112 yards.
Yeah, I think that was on Nate Wright. But they never exactly – they didn't set the world on fire. That game was – and once again, it was a defense. It was a defense.
Yeah.
They would like bend but not break. And special teams was kind of the difference maker when Hilgenberg got Parsons in the end zone.
Yeah, it was Don Parsons. Bob Parsons had for punts. He had 4 punt returns for 120. He had 4 punts for 123 yards.
Yeah.
So, and then
And our return game back then was terrible.
so the kick returns. So Brett McClanahan, 2 for 60, and then Jackie Wallace, 1 for 15.
Yeah.
And then Larry Marshall at 2 punt returns for 19 yards. Well,
Yeah,
Bears weren't. The
Larry
Bears weren't
didn't stay
much
with us
better.
long.
The Bears that weren't much better. Ike Hill, Cliff Taylor.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah, that was the Abe Gibran coached Chicago Bears, and they were not good. Not good.
Yeah, look, I can see why.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary Huff is a quarterback. Harrison, Granberry, Charlie Wade was good. George Farmer, Fred Pagic, Steve Kinney, Ernie Janet, Rich Cody, Bob Newton, Bob Asher.
Yeah, that was a front line.
God, there ain't nobody good on that team.
Yeah, that was a front line.
Even their defense was bad. Dave Gallagher, Jim Osborne, Wally Chambers, Gary Havernack, Hrivnak.
Havernack.
Bob Buffoon or Doug Buffoon.
Doug Buffon.
I know, but sounds better to say it that way. Wayman Bryant.
Wayman Bryant. Yeah, Wayman Bryant was a starter before. Mike Singletary.
Jimmy Gunn, Alan Ellis, Joe Taylor, Craig Clemens, and Gary Lyle.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only all pro on that team was Wally Chambers.
That is awful.
He was the all pro. Davey, we were good special teams when it came to blocking kicks, but our return game was not the best. We were the best at blocking kicks. And when we really got good was when we actually got Matt Blair. The things that Matt could do on special teams as far as block kick, I mean, they could turn games around. Matt, Fred, especially extra points and point afters, so that helped a lot. But yeah, our return game was never. I don't remember us having a really good return game till we got. I'll say Manfred Moore, and that was only a year, and that was in '77. But up until then, we didn't really have a return game. Maybe Lenny Willis.
So that Chicago Bear game was the only home game so far. The first 2 were on the road, and their 4th game was also on the road.
That was Dallas, right?
The Cowgirls.
Yeah, and we beat them. That was a Chuck Foreman game. Chuck Foreman was the offense in that game.
23-21.
Yeah, we won it on a last-second Fred Cox field goal.
So Golden Richards, 58-yard pass from Roger Staubach.
Yep.
Fred Cox, 46-yard field goal. Chuck Foreman, 66-yard pass from Tarkenton. Fred Cox, 30-yard field goal. And so that was it for the first half. Chuck Foreman, 13-yard pass from Fran Tarkenton. And Walt Garrison for the Cowboys, 5-yard pass. Calvin Hill, 6-yard rush.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fred Cox, 27-yard field goal.
Yeah, and that came down to the last minute. And it didn't look like he made the field goal. He barely made that field goal. How many yards was that last field goal?
The last field goal was 27 yards.
Yeah, which was – and Cox made a 46-yarder earlier?
Yep, 46-yard field goal.
That was stretching it for him.
He made a 46-yarder, a 30-yarder, and a 27-yarder.
Yeah, that 46-yarder was stretching it for him. Which, well, it meant they kicked it at the 36-yard line. So –
and,
yeah, that was stretching it for him. But yeah, it was a good game.
The Cowboys had 4 interceptions.
Yeah. As much as we say how good Tarkenton was, he was really bad at throwing interceptions.
So, no, Staubach threw 4 picks.
Staubach threw 4?
Yeah.
How many did Fran throw?
None.
Oh, Fran had a perfect
So
game.
this was probably like, yeah, he had a passer rating of 122.9.
Okay.
He probably didn't have that very often.
No.
Um,
What did Chuck have stat wise?
Chuck had 23 yards, had 23 attempts rushing, 72 yards. He had 5 receptions for 131 yards.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then,
it was a Chuck Foreman show.
yeah, Dave Osborne had 8 rushes for 20 yards. Ed Manero 2 for 7. John Holland 3 catches for 55 yards.
And Holland was splitting time with Jim Lash.
Jim Lash
The other
did
wide
have
receiver
stats.
spot.
Yeah.
Thank you again, George.
Calvin Hill 95 yards rushing.
Well, he was a workhorse. Yeah, he was a Cowboys workhorse.
George, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, George. Calvin Hill. Once Dwayne Thomas left, he became the vocal point of that offense, and he was a workhorse. Now they had Drew Pearson, Golden Richards, Staubach was there. That was Bob Lilly's last year with the Cowboys, but they still had Leroy Jordan. They still had Cliff Harris and Charlie Waters on the secondary. But yeah, that was the year the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs that year, which was a first. So Hill went to Washington. He went to
they didn't cheat their way to the playoffs.
No, Calvin Hill went to the World Football League first, and then he ended up in Washington. So he went to Washington, and then he ended his career with the Cleveland Browns. So, we're what? The Vikings are 4-0 at this time?
The Vikings are 4-0, and that put the Cowboys at 1-3.
Yeah. The Cowboys were losing games, the close games that they were used to winning. They were losing that year. And
then week 5 was their second home game. That was against the Oilers.
Okay, little backstory for those here in the Twin Cities. They didn't televise the game here in the Twin Cities. It was blacked out. We had to listen to it on the radio. So any highlights I saw of that game, I had to see on the news or read in the newspaper.
And that probably sucked because they destroyed the Oilers.
And they put up 51 points.
51-10.
Yeah, they put up 51 points on the Houston Oilers. So it's you're kind of like, okay, they put up 51 on Houston. The offense clicked on all cylinders that day. Even Tarkenton threw an 80-yard TD pass to John Gilliam.
It was the first touchdown of the game. John Gilliam, 80-yard touchdown pass from Tarkenton.
Yep.
And then the Oilers answered with a Skip Butler 29-yard field goal.
Okay.
Fred Cox 42-yard field goal. Then Stu Voigt 10-yard pass. Ed Marinero 1-yard rush. Chuck Foreman 6-yard rush. Then the Oilers scored again. 2-yard rush from Vic Washington. And then it was Chuck Foreman 24-yard pass. Steve Craig 10-yard pass. And then Sam McCollum 20-yard pass. So Bob Berry scored the last 2 touchdowns for the Vikings.
Bob Berry did play.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dan Pastorini was 16 of 32 for 4, and he had 4 interceptions.
Oh, Pastorini?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Willie Rogers had 42 yards rushing, and Billy Johnson, who we just talked about, had 52 yards receiving. That was it. They had a total of 185 yards. The Vikings had a total of 502 yards that game.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. It was already 4-0, and people were already saying,
Was Houston really that bad that year?
They were that bad. They were Houston. That era of Houston Oilers football was not good. Was not good at all. They turned it around in '75. They got Bum Phillips, and I think they were like 10-4.
That's Wes Phillips' granddad. For those who,
the
guy who just got suspended.
Yep. Yeah, it's Wes Phillips' granddad, and they turned it around, and then they had one bad year in '76, but they were competitive the rest of the time. And then when you got Earl Campbell, that's when they were real competitive. Well, then
was that '78?
Yeah. They got Earl with 70. So from 78 to 80, they were the thorn in the Steelers' side. But then after they lost to the Raiders in a wild card in 80, they fired Bum Phillips. And the team went down, and they were just miserable after that until they got
mooned.
They got mooned. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
they were not good.
So Tarkington was 18 to 24 for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Did he throw any interceptions?
No.
Okay.
The Vikings, I don't think had any. The Vikings had no turnovers. Bob Berry was 8 of 12 for 77 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
Mike Escheld was 1 for 1 for 6 yards.
Mike Eyeshide?
Eyeshide, yeah.
He was a punter.
Well, he was 1 for 1 for 6 yards.
They faked a punt.
So Chuck Foreman, 16 carries, 61 yards, 4 receptions, 63 yards. Bill Brown, 6 rushes, 24.
Mm-hmm.
See, Ed Marinero, 4 carries, 5 yards. John Gilliam, 1 for 9. Dave Osborne, 3 for 10. McCallahan, 3 for 13. John Gilliam had 2 receptions for 102 yards. Stu Voigt, 5 for 41. Lash, 2 for 39. King Ryder, 1 for 21. Steve Craig, 2 for 14. Nate Wright.
Doug Kingsrider, was it? Did you say Nate Wright caught a pass?
Nate Wright, 1 for 6. That must have been the fake
That
punt.
must have been the punt.
Yeah.
You see what happens when they don't televise the game?
Yeah. So Amos Martin had a pick. Jeff Seaman had a pick.
Okay.
Jackie Wallace had a pick. Nate Wright had a pick.
Okay.
Billy Johnson had 3 kickoff returns for 57 yards.
Mm-hmm.
There was no kick returns for the Vikings. 2 for 37 for McCallahan.
I want to say the Vikings blocked a field goal attempt. Alan Page did.
Field goals attempted, 2. Field goals made, 1. It doesn't say anything about it being blocked, but he was 1 of 2.
Butler was 1 of 2?
Yeah.
That means that other one was blocked. Because that was like on the highlight reels. The ball, it was blocked, it was knocked in the air, and about 3 Vikings had their hands on it. And Jackie Wallace scored, but I don't think they counted it. I think they said he lateraled it forward or something like that. But I don't think they counted. But Alan Page did block a field goal.
I use them both sites. Wiki, sometimes they have different information. Let's see if the Wikipedia says anything.
No, Davey, we didn't play the Giants in '74. Played the Cardinals instead.
Yeah, so let's see. Okay, let's see. So
So technically we could have put up 58 points.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me go get bank game. Here we go. I forget, both websites are set up way differently. So
which one are you looking at now?
I am looking at Wikipedia now to see if that blocked extra field, that block field goal comes up on their stats.
Okay.
Let me see. All right, so Tarkington, pass. Skip. Fourth quarter. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about the block kick on here either.
Okay, yeah, that's.
I'm sure it happened, but it doesn't say anything about it, which is kind of, you would think it would, but.
Yeah, that was Alan Page that did that. Alan Page is the one that blocked that kick. Which Alan Page blocked a lot of kicks. A lot of people don't realize that he blocked.
Was it 77? Something like that.
Who's that?
40. It was 40. God, he had like not 77, but he leads didn't he lead the NFL in blocks and fumble recoveries for the longest time?
Yeah, he did. Marshall had 29 fumble recoveries for the longest for like years. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's even broke that record. Matt Blair blocked in his career. I want to say Matt Blair blocked like maybe 6 more kicks than Allen did. But
so that was Skip Butler.
Oh, Yogi was born in a bicentennial year.
Yeah. So Skip Butler was a straight on kicker as well, huh?
Yes, he was straight. Was he straight on? Let me think. He might. Yeah, I think so. He was like the last of a dying breed. Most of the kickers were becoming soccer style. Davey, the back-to-back losses were to the Rams and Patriots, or the Lions and Patriots, and then the Packers and Rams.
So that's yeah. So the next to that, so after the Oilers game, the Vikings are 5-0. So the next game is a loss to the Lions.
To the Lions. The first time the Lions had beat us in like 13 tries. They hadn't beat us in 13 tries, and they beat us, what, 20-16?
20-16.
They scored late. We couldn't mount an offensive drive at the end there, and we lost. And Rick Forzano got carried off the field by the Lions. Ain't that a bitch?
Yeah.
Ain't that a bitch? And then, so we lose that game. So we're, what, 5-1? And then the next week, we got the New England Patriots, who were 5-1 also, with Jim Plunkett as their starting quarterback. Hard-fought game. Patriots were leading for most of the game. Now, this is a game. I found it on YouTube. It is on YouTube. This is a game where Fran Tarkenton got in a fist fight with Ron Bolton of the Patriots. What happened was, and I don't know what led up to it, it was late in the game. Fran scored a touchdown. At the time, it was the go-ahead touchdown. Fran scores. Okay. As soon as he gets in the end zone, it's almost like, I don't know if Bolton said something to him. He didn't. It didn't look like he touched him. Fran turns around, throws the ball into Bolton's back, which starts a fight. Tarkenton got into it with Bolton, and then Prentice McCray jumped in, and then Mick Tinglehoff and Ed Marinero jumped in for the Vikings. It was a fight. It was a legit fight. They had to pause the game for a minute, but the Vikings had the lead there. And Davey, this is a trivia question for you. It wasn't Russ Francis. Both Patriot TD passes Plunkett threw to a tight end named Bob Windsor. And the game winner was the last play of the game where he hit Windsor over the middle, and the Patriots won. What was it, 17-14?
Let's see. It was 17-14. They scored. The Vikings scored 14 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, Patriots had been like dominating that whole game. Funny thing is, I don't think Windsor caught another pass after that touchdown. I don't think he even played. I think he got hurt. Yeah, I think it's the same Windsor. But there was some story about he caught the game winner, and then they said he never played another down, or he got hurt or something. I don't remember what the story is with Windsor, but yeah, it was Bob Windsor that beat us that day. but that's where the injuries started to mount up. Roy Winston got hurt. Matt Blair was starting to get more playing time then. They moved Ed White over to the right side of the offensive line next to Ron Yeary, which is where his Pro Bowl run started. The left side was pretty bad. Chuck Goodrum was playing tackle. Steve Lawson, the guy we talked about, was playing guard. He was splitting time with Andy Maurer. The only steady on the offensive line was Tingelhoff, Ed White, and Ron Yeary. Gary Larson started to play with injuries. Well, he was slowly being replaced by Doug Sutherland.
So the Patriots actually have a story about Bob Windsor. It says the majority of Patriot fans may not recall the 74 season. Granted, a large portion of fans weren't even alive, and the season was, by all accounts, mediocre by Patriot standards. Man, you guys are so full of yourselves that you guys had a Brady.
Yeah, you are. Are you on Wikipedia?
No, I'm on NFL.com. The team didn't win a Super Bowl, a conference title, or a division title. They didn't even make the playoffs. And it says so far the franchise is, talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is for a 1 October game in Minnesota where tight end Bob Windsor made one of the greatest and gutsiest plays in New England sports history. Prior to the 74 season, we all know how bad the Patriots were.
Mm-hmm.
He was traded from San Fran. And it says they were a bad team when he got traded. I'm trying to. And then they hired Oklahoma's coach. It's just talking about. I'm trying to get to the story. Yeah. Let me see. Fairbanks. So the biggest test for the Patriots came the following week as they went on the road to face Fran Tarkenton's Vikings, who were also 5-1 and coming off a Super Bowl appearance the previous season. The Vikings were heavy favorites despite the identical record. Trailed 10-7 and a 2-minute warning, but Tarkenton led them back on a quick 74-yard drive that capped off a 3-yard touchdown scramble. Tarkenton scored with under a minute and a half remaining and then got ejected.
Yep, for the fight.
Him and Patriots defensive back Ron Bolton for roughhousing in the end zone, Hobson recalled. But everyone thought, what difference does it make? We figured that it was, and we are going to start to head down down the elevator to the locker rooms. So do they win that game? Tarkenton doesn't get ejected. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So New England still had hope, but they needed a big play fast. Vataha provided one, hauling in a 55-yard bomb from Plunkett to the Vikings 10-yard line. The following incompletion by Vataha, the Patriots were left with 8 seconds, no timeouts, and the last chance to pull off the upset. With the Minnesota defense focused on Vataha, Windsor was called upon to make a play. And he says, Jim looked to Randy, checked off him, and hit me right up the middle near the goal line. Windsor recollected. Paul Krause came from the safety and hit me, and I knew immediately my right leg was done. So I kept it in the air, spun, and pushed off with my left leg and used my last breath to throw myself into the end zone, hoping I would get there. This picture is pretty gnarly of his right leg.
I saw it. I saw it when it happened.
As I lay there, I could hear the crowd yelling, and then Sam Cunningham and Todd Neville and everybody was jumping on me, telling me I got in. And I said, "Yeah, but what about my knee? It's killing me." Like the way that his leg is bent is just.
Mm-hmm.
Windsor was not only hit, but he was twisting and dragging the guy fighting the extra yards. He gave it everything he had in that play. Some Viking players were less impressed by Windsor's heroics, but they couldn't take the win away from the Patriots. So they carried him off the field, and it says when you ride back at Logan Airport, the team was graded. Okay, it says it was wonderful. None of it was expected. Okay. So, but yeah, you could tell it was his leg injury. It's pretty. If you guys get a chance to look it up. It said, unfortunately, the rest of the season failed to live up to high expectations following Windsor's heroics as a rash of injuries caused New England to drop 6 of the remaining games.
Yeah.
But while Windsor was in the rest of the set where denied a storybook ending, his legend with a memory game-winning effort lived on. Yeah. So he didn't do that. Was it for him?
Yeah, that was his last. That was the
That
last.
was it.
That was
That
it.
was
That's
it.
what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was done.
Yeah. So I mean that's I mean back then if you had an injury like that, especially how his leg looked,
Yeah,
you were done. There like nowadays, I mean, hell, Alex Smith pretty much lost his leg. Teddy Bridgewater pretty much lost their
Teddy
legs and
Bridgewater.
they came
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. That's. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember when it happened. I was just like, damn. I had never seen that happen to the Vikings. Never. Well, no, I take that back. We lost to the Niners in '72. That same type of way, but
I can actually going back to that. I can Tarkington is not. He's
Target
kind of
was
a
a
he's kind of a
Tarkenton.
dick.
He was a cocky, arrogant sob. He
He
would
still
fight.
is. He still is to this day.
Nah, he would fight. He was kind of like he was like
I
a
mean, you're the greatest Viking quarterback of all time, but you never come around. Only on special occasions.
well. He it's cold. He's not coming up here unless it's like 70 degrees.
Boy, he's also the all-time interception leader. No one ever talks about that.
Yeah, he's still got
All
the
anybody ever talks about is Rod Woodson. It's like, hello.
and Woodson's what 10
He's
what's
I think Woodson has like 75 or something like that.
yeah, so Woodson didn't even stick around long enough to break
Yeah.
it. Well, Woodson did other things too. Paul just played center field. That's all he had to do. He had to front.
Yeah.
You've got a front seven like we had, and Paul will even tell you this. Your job is easy. And they used to get on Paul. He didn't tackle, and he's like, "Well, guess what? I made 14 tackles in a Super Bowl. For
Yeah.
me to have to make that many tackles,
Something's going wrong.
something's going wrong at the line of scrimmage."
So going back to the Lions game, we were talking about they haven't beat the Lions the first time the Lions beat them in a while. So after the '67 season, the Lions. So going into 1968, the Lions led the all-time series 9-5-2. By the time they met in '74,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lions won. It was Vikings 16-10 and 2.
Yeah, and it's
And
been
then the Lions beat them again in '75,
mm-hmm.
and then that made it series 17-11. And by the time the '70s ended, it was 24-12-2. The Vikings.
Yep.
And then in the '80s, the Vikings 13 and the Vikings went 13-6.
Okay.
So the Vikings. So that was the first time the Lions did beat them in a long time because they didn't beat the Vikings. Actually, they tied them a lot. So
Yeah, they did.
in the early going. So yeah. But that goes back to the theme because they lost their first 2 preseason games, and then they lost 2 in a row to the Lions and to the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next week was the Bears.
Yeah, and they shut them out 17-0.
Shut
It was
out.
it was really bad weather. Really, it was windy and raining. The Bears were the Bears. They shut them out.
52 degrees, 83% humidity. So
It's raining.
And then winds were 13 miles an hour.
Yeah, sometimes they were gusting worse. In the stadium, it was worse than that because they had that swirling type of wind. But yeah, the Vikings got the shutout, and you didn't have to do much on offense because, and the Bears were so bad they brought Bobby Douglas in to start. Well, that didn't help anything either.
So Gary Huff was 11 of 24 for 74 yards. Bobby Douglas was 4 for 17. They held the Bears to 158 yards. 100 of it was net passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
So Tarkenton was only 9 of 18 for 80 yards, but he didn't do much because Dave Osborne, 24 carries, 98 yards. Chuck Foreman, 21 carries, 80 yards.
Osborne stepped into the starting lineup. They went from Oscar Reed to Ed Marinero to Dave Osborne. Bud could count on Osborne. And so Osborne became a starter.
The scoring was Fred Cox, 23-yard field goal, John Gillum, 35-yard pass, and then Stu Voigt, 40-yard pass.
Does it say how many sacks the Vikings got there?
Let me see. So Tarkenton was sacked once.
Mm-hmm.
Huff and Douglas were each sacked once.
Hmm.
So they only had two. But Douglas and Huff also threw a pick.
Yeah, I know Matt Blair had one.
So they had 3 turnovers. The Vikings had 2 turnovers. Tarkenton threw an interception. So Matt Blair had a pick. Jeff Wright had a pick.
Okay.
Craig Clemens had the one for the Bears.
Okay. Yeah, it was. What was the date on that game?
That was November 3rd.
Yeah, just after my 8th birthday.
Start time was 2 p.m. That's weird.
Was it 2 p.m. or 1 p.m.?
It says 2 p.m. on here.
It was probably
maybe 1 p.m. local.
It was 1 p.m. Central Time, but it was 2 p.m. Well, the games used to start at 1.
So even like now they start at noon to get the 1 o'clock kickoff on the East Coast. So back then they started off at 1, whether it was Central Time or not.
Right. Here's the thing. Usually when the game started, because like you would have like the pregame going, right? There would be a game being played. If a game started at noon on the East Coast, Minnesota's game wouldn't start until 1, so we got the pregame, or we got another game on another channel and watched it. It was weird how they did it. All the times were local. So say the Vikings are playing on the West Coast, then those games would be at like 3 o'clock still, because they would always play the West Coast games at noon or later. And then, but of course, if when you play a game here at like 1 o'clock here, it's 11 o'clock on the West Coast. So, but yeah, for years, I don't think the NFL was in sync with the numbers. They finally did that in the 80s, but the numbers, they were off with starting times,
Yeah, so that game, there's a lot of ugly games in the 70s. I'm just going to say that.
Well, just kind of, the year before they got rid of the blackout rule. They put in the blackout rule. So, you were able to see home games. Unfortunately, we couldn't sell out the Houston game. So we didn't see the Houston game. And later on in the year, we didn't see the Atlanta game, which was on a Saturday. So we missed 2 games that year that were home games for the Vikings.
So the next game was against the Cardinals.
Monday Night Football. And the Cardinals, they were good. That game had me worried. Historically, the Vikings never played that.
Both teams, the Vikings were 7-2 going into that game. The Cardinals were 7-1. Don Coryell was the head coach.
Yep, that was the start of that was what he did. What Don Coryell did in San Diego. He did it first in St. Louis with
Jim Hart.
Mel Gray, J.V. Kane. You had Terry Metcalf, running back. Jim Otis. People forget about Jim Otis. You had Earl Thomas as a wide receiver. Wow. The defense was pretty decent. You had Roger Worley. And
so Jim Hart almost completed as many passes as Tarkenton threw.
I believe it.
So Tarkenton was 14-29 for 137 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Hart was 28-43 for 353.
Yep. Yep.
So the scoring went Dave Osborne, 1-yard rush.
Mm-hmm.
J.V. Kane, 40-yard pass. Then John Gillum, 10-yard pass. Jim Baker, 46-yard field goal. Earl Thomas, 12-yard pass.
Yep.
Chuck Foreman, 13-yard rush. Fran Tarkenton, 11-yard rush. Jim Hart, 4-yard rush.
Yeah, they were competitive. They were competitive. We held on and won it, but they were competitive.
The Vikings were 3-point favorites. So
Yeah.
they covered.
Yeah, and they covered.
But so total yards, Vikings had 304.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals had 436. That sounds like a game today.
That was the precursor. That was Don Coryell. That was Don Coryell.
So
those numbers that he put up in that game were common numbers when he got to the Chargers. You know, he's the one that he basically made Dan Fouts the quarterback that he was. You know, and Jim Hart was a good quarterback. Hart was a good quarterback.
And then Dave Osborne, 23 rushes, 98 yards. George Foreman, Chuck Foreman, 13 rushes for 68 yards. Oscar Reed, 1 for 1. And then Stu Voigt was the leading receiver, 27. Other than Dave, so Dave Osborne had 98 yards rushing, 71 yards receiving.
What did Foreman have for receptions?
20.
How many catches?
3.
So they were keying on him.
So the game plan was Osborne. They probably used Foreman as a decoy.
And at that time, the Vikings' biggest offensive threat was Chuck Foreman.
Yeah.
He was just tearing up the league up to then, and they found a way to defense him. I don't know who Coryell took over. Bob Holloway got fired as the head coach of the Cardinals, the former Viking D coordinator. He had the head coaching job in St. Louis. But whoever the D coordinator was, he shut down. He neutralized Chuck Foreman.
Yeah.
So
Otis, 14 attempts rushing, 50 yards. Terry Metcalf at 8 rushes for 29 yards, and Donnie Anderson 2 for 12. But Metcalf had 5 receptions for 50 yards.
Donnie Anderson was still playing, huh?
Donnie Anderson, yep. And then Mel Gray, 6 catches, 91 yards.
Okay.
Jackie Smith, 6 for 84. Jackie Smith, is that the same guy that dropped the touchdown?
That's the same one that dropped the touchdown.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the same one that dropped the touchdown.
Oh, he dropped the touchdown. Oh, no, the horror.
And having to the Cowboys, I kind of.
Come on, guys. I'm truly humbled by you guys.
Thank you, No Stop. Thank you.
I can't. Oh, my gosh. Thank you guys so much. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to have to get a running total to Yogi. Oh, my gosh. Thank you, No Stop. Thank you so much, man.
Yep.
Yeah, he does. That's why I wish the Vikings would have hired him as the head coach.
They're going to regret they didn't.
And then
I do think they're going to regret they didn't.
And then Terry for the defense, Terry Brown had a pick. Clarence
and Terry Brown was a Cardinal at one time, I believe.
Clarence Duran had a pick as well.
Oh, Duran?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does
it say how many times?
Terry Metcalf, was that Eric Metcalf's uncle or dad?
That's his dad.
Okay.
That's his dad. Does it say how many times Hart was sacked?
Hart was sacked twice.
Okay. See, we weren't getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback that year. I think that was one of the years where we didn't put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. We did, but we didn't get a lot.
Carl Eller, Sutherland, Page, Marshall, they're all there. Matt Blair, Seaman, Hillenberg, Nate Wright, Jeff Wright, Brown, and Krause were the starters on defense.
Yeah, and Brown was splitting time with Jackie Wallace. Yeah, you're right, Davey. Nate Wright was a Cardinal. So was John Gilliam. Yeah, we got them both from the Cardinals. So after the Cardinals, who did we have?
So after the Cardinals, how the hell did they do this? They go back to back-to-back losses again.
Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
They lost in Green Bay. That was the John Hadel.
Green Bay was 5-5.
Yeah.
That put Green Bay at 5-5 back at the game. It was 19-7.
Yep. Yeah, it was
So
19-7.
Chester, what was that? Marco. He had 4 straight field goals. 20. So no scoring in the first quarter. He had 2 field goals in the second quarter, 28 and 31 yards. He had a field goal in the third quarter. It was the only scoring. This is the only scoring so far.
Mm-hmm.
So the Packers had a 9-0 lead, and then they had a 12-0 lead when he had 4 straight field goals, and then Chuck Foreman got a 24-yard pass to make it 12-7, and then MacArthur Lane a 68-yard pass from John Hadel.
Yeah, they beat a blitz. They beat a Viking blitz, and MacArthur Lane was well on his way. Yeah, that was.
So each quarterback got sacked twice.
Okay.
Green Bay had 393 total yards. The Vikings had 284. They each had Vikings had 2 turnovers. Green Bay only had 1.
How many yards did Foreman have rushing?
Foreman only had 39 yards rushing.
What did Osborne have?
Osborne didn't have any. Oscar Reed had 10. So the Vikings only carried the ball 20 times total.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Foreman 39 yards. Oscar Reed 35.
They had no offense that game.
Jim Lash had the big game, 6 catches, 136 yards.
And they only scored 7 points.
Uh-huh.
Jeez. I remember that game, and I remember my dad was in a bad mood.
Brockington had 32 carries for 137 yards. That's why they didn't score very many, because it seems like Green Bay had the ball.
Brockington was their workhorse.
Brockington
would have stayed with the Packers, but he had a falling out with Bart Starr.
He does not have time of possession on here. But I imagine
the coach.
I imagine if he runs the ball 32 times, they had the ball for the.
You know what? Hang on. Let me see something. I might have the time of possession here.
Al Matthews had the pick for the Packers. He returned it 32 yards. The Vikings didn't have a pick.
No, not that game.
They had 2 sacks though.
And then the next week we go to the Rams and lose again.
Yeah. So that was November 17th, 1974. Let's see, what was the weather? The weather was 33 degrees, wind chill of 26.
Oh, for the Packer game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cold. It was cold.
Vikings are favored by 10.
Yeah, because the Packers were not a very good team. They were not a very good
That
team.
was a home game, too.
Yeah, and it was a home game. Well, okay. Home games between the Packers and Vikings don't really mean anything, because even back then, you still had a bunch of Packer fans in the stands.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, it was but there was a chick in the Viking armor, as they say.
That's weird. They had a better road record than a home record.
Who's that?
The Vikings.
Yeah, they lost 3 games at home that year.
Yeah, they lost. The Lions game, the Patriots game were at home,
Mm-hmm.
and the Rams game. The Packers game was the home game.
Yeah, that stretch in the early part of the season, the Oilers, Lions, and Patriots was a 3-game homestand. The Vikings lost 2 of 3.
Yeah, they lost the last 2.
Yeah,
and then they went on the road, won 2 in a row,
mm-hmm.
come back home and lose.
Yeah, and then they lose.
Then they go to LA and they lose in LA.
That game was close. That game could have went either way. Chuck was our only offense. But the Rams were a better team than the Vikings. Let's be honest.
Vikings got all their points in 1 quarter.
Yeah. The Rams just kept fighting. James Harris was a quarterback for the Rams.
Yeah. So no scoring in the first quarter.
Right.
Fred Cox 36-yard field goal in the second.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Foreman 1-yard rush in the second. James Harris 1-yard rush for the Rams, and the Chuck Foreman 12-yard pass from Tarkington. That was 17-6 at halftime.
Yep.
And then James Harris a 1-yard rush, and then Jack Snow an 8-yard reception.
Yeah, that was at the end. That was towards the end of the game. We could.
The Rams were actually favored.
Yeah, they were the home team. I think they were only favored by 3, weren't they?
They were favored by 1.5.
1.5. Yeah. So basically, it was without saying toss up.
Yeah. So the Vikings were sacked. Tarkington was sacked once. We did not get a sack on Harris.
We hit him a lot, but we didn't get no sacks. He was a big guy.
The backup quarterback for the Rams,
Ron Jaworski.
Yep.
Did Jaworski play in this game?
Yep. He had one pass for. He had one pass completion for 19 yards.
Okay.
He had one rushing attempt. So Harris must have got hurt or something. Must have been out for a couple plays.
I think Harris got knocked out of the game for a brief second. I want to say he got hit by Sutherland.
James Harris was 6'4", 210.
Yeah. So you went from Roman Gabriel, who was 6'5", to James Harris, who was 6'4". Smallest quarterback they had at that time was John Hadel. And then they go and get 5'0" Pat Hayden. I mean, I don't know what Rosenblum was thinking.
Yeah. Tarkington did not have a very good game. He was 19 of 35.
You know, there were times where Tarkington just didn't look good at all. And there were a couple of games that year where you were kind of like his age is starting to show. That was kind of the theme with the whole damn Viking team. The age had caught up with them. So what are they now? They're 6-4?
No, stop. We usually don't allow guests on this show unless it's a special circumstance. We might have a trivia night one night.
Mm-hmm.
We could have Davey Chains and all the old school guys come on. But usually this is the one show we usually don't have guests come on just because of the way it's. I don't have, because I'm doing the hosting and all the production. So I am reading stories. As you can see, I'm barely keeping up with chat. I'm reading stories and all that type of stuff. And I'm doing, so Tony's just here to spit his knowledge. He doesn't do anything on the production side.
No, I just talk. That's all I do. So what are the Vikings now? They're like 6-4, right?
So let's see. So after the Rams game, going in, so they are 7-4 after the Rams game.
7-4?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't lose again the rest of the season.
No, was the Saints next?
It was the Saints. Yes.
They dominated the Saints. That was
23-9.
29-9.
29-9.
That was they basically beat up Archie Manning. That was one of those games where they got it together on offense.
Archie Manning was 9 of 18 for 100 yards. He was sacked 3 times for 29 yards.
Mm-hmm. He got hit more than that.
Yeah, and then Bobby Scott was the backup. And then Alvin Maxson,
yeah.
10 rushes, 98 yards.
He almost got 100 yards, huh?
And then Bob Newland was the only guy, 2 receptions, 51 yards.
Yeah, they couldn't throw the ball.
Yeah. So the total yards was 226 for the Saints, 405 for Minnesota. So Dave Osborne, 2-yard rush. Bill McClard, 27-yard field goal. Alvin Maxson, 1-yard rush. Stu Voigt, 4-yard pass. Fred Cox, 25-yard field goal. John Gilliam, 13-yard pass, and then 22-yard pass.
Okay.
Reception.
Yeah. So I think they won the division that game too. They clinched the division with that win. So they're 8-4.
Right. And then let's see. I don't think there was any. There was no interceptions in that game for either team. I don't think there was one turnover. There was one turnover.
Davey, I think Abramowitz had went to the 49ers. I think Abramowitz was a 49er. I'll find out right now.
Abramowitz is not on the roster for the Saints.
Yeah, he had been traded. Yeah, he was a Niner. Yeah, that Saints team was. I don't even know who their head coach was.
North.
Have no idea who that is.
John North.
Yeah, still have no idea who that is.
I imagine if he was a head coach of the Saints, that he was not.
I bet he was an interim.
He was the head coach of the Saints for 3 years, 73, 74, 75, and he was 11 and 23.
Saints were bad.
He got fired halfway through the 75 season. They were 1-5. He got fired.
Yeah, he was. Those Saints teams were horrible. They were horrible.
The Saints overall, let me see, from that time period, for those 3 years, they were 26 and 46.
Yeah, they were bad. Yep, they were horrendous.
Their win percentage, let me see. Yeah. The win. No, sorry, that's their win percentage. So their win percentage was 25%, and their team's rank was by the way they have it listed here, it's kind of like the numbers are here and the letters are here, so it's kind of. But yeah, but they were
bad.
They were 25% win percentage. He had a 25% win percentage as the head coach.
Yeah, they were terrible.
324 as the head coach. As his win percentage. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, they were bad.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's the funny part. So now you beat the Saints, right? Then the next week.
Yeah, 29-9, they beat the Saints.
Yep,
So.
And then the next week on a Saturday afternoon, you're playing the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
That was a Saturday game. That was the other game that was blacked out here in the Twin Cities. So whatever I heard, I had to hear on the radio. But Dave Osborne was kind of the workhorse that game. The Vikings won.
Yeah, Saturday, December 7th at 1 p.m.
Yep.
The Falcons are 2-11.
The first of two Saturday games.
Cowboys and Cleveland played the other.
Right. But the Vikings for 2 weeks in a row played on a Saturday to end the season in 74. How many yards did Osborne have rushing?
So Osborne had 24 carries for 96 yards. Ed Marinero had 11 for 43.
Chuck didn't play, huh?
Chuck had 4 for 7. And he had 2 receptions for 18 yards.
Okay.
I just think the game was, I imagine the time possession was because the Falcons only had, so total yards includes, I don't know if total yards includes.
Total yards would be net passing they take away from sacks and rushing.
So the net passing yards was 75.
How many times was he sacked?
He was sacked 4 times for 50 yards.
Oh, that was Kim McQuilkin. I remember that much.
Yeah.
Davey, the game you're thinking of, they played in 75. That was a downpour here in Minneapolis. The Vikings beat them 38-0. Yep, that was 75.
And Tarkington did not play that game.
No, Bob Berry played.
Bob Berry was 14-22 for 114 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 sack, 1 interception.
Yeah, Bob. Fran, he sat Fran because we're heading into the playoff stretch, and it was Atlanta. So
Kim McQuilkin was the quarterback. Art Malone 54 yards rushing, Dave Hampton 54 yards rushing, Ken Burrow 50 yards receiving. That was pretty much it. Yeah. The longest play of the day was 13 yards for the Falcons.
Yeah, that was. If you ever see the highlight reel, they show that's a game where basically the Vikings had the 5-man line in there, and Kim McQuilkin got hit by everybody.
The wind chill was 19 degrees.
Yeah, it was December. It was December in Minnesota. You know?
And it was 23-10 was the score.
Yep. And that was on a Saturday. It was blacked out here in the Twin Cities. So didn't see it.
Dave Osborne, 10-yard rush. Art Malone, 1-yard rush. Fred Cox, 21-yard field goal. Dave Osborne, 5-yard rush. Nick Mayer.
Nick Mickemeyer.
36-yard field goal. And then Stu Voigt, 10-yard reception.
There were two Nick Meyers kicking in the 70s. Nick Mickemeyer and Steve Mickemeyer. Nick was with the Falcons. Steve was with the 49ers. So, but yeah, so we're 9-4, and then we end the season in Kansas City.
I don't know. I don't see, Davey. I don't know if you're the geezer in the group or not because we don't know everybody's ages in here. I know Tony is older than me, so
I'm 57.
Yeah, so I don't know how old everybody is in here. I'm 48, so
yeah,
I don't know if you're the geezer or not. I think Bob Sweet's pretty old. I could be wrong, but
I think Bob's a couple of years younger than me.
Yeah.
But we played the Chiefs last game of the year. And
the Chiefs game was not close.
No.
That was 35-13.
15.
Yeah, 15. Yeah, 1-5.
Yep. 35-15. Sam McCollum had 2 touchdowns. I know that much.
Hank Stram was still the head coach. Fucking dick.
And I think that was his last game as a Chiefs coach. I think he got fired.
So, Jan Stenerud, 37-yard field goal. Jan Stenerud, 32-yard field goal. Sam McCollum, 34-yard touchdown reception. McCollum, 10-yard touchdown reception. Emmett Thomas, 73-yard interception return.
Okay.
Ed Marinero, 7-yard touchdown pass catch. Jan Stenerud, 20-yard field goal. Oscar Reed, 3-yard. And McCallahan with a 6-yard rush.
Oh, wow. Oscar Reed played.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Total two turnovers for the Minnesota, 3 for Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
One sack for the Chiefs. They sacked the Viking quarterback once. The Vikings got the KC quarterback 5 times. Lynn Dawson got sacked 3 times. Dean Carlson got sacked twice.
Alan Page had 2 sacks on Dawson. He almost had a safety on one of them.
Yeah, but they didn't keep sack stats back then.
Yeah, Page almost got him twice.
Yeah, Fran Tarkenton did play this game, but Bob Berry also played.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Reed, 15 rushes, 57 yards, 6 catches, 37 yards.
Yep.
Does not look like Chuck Foreman played. Ed Marinero, 12 rushes for 31 yards.
Okay.
Sam McCollum had 6 catches for 118 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
And then looks like Elmo Wright had 3 catches for 75 yards for Kansas City.
Oh, Elmo Wright. My God, I haven't heard that name in years.
And then Khalil Miller had 12 rushes for 46 yards, 4 catches for 66. And that was pretty much it.
Khalil Miller?
Khalil Miller, yeah.
He ended up with the Browns. If that's the same Khalil Miller I'm thinking of, he ended up with the Browns.
I can look at his. He played 1 year for Kansas City.
And the rest were with Cleveland?
He got traded halfway through the 75 season, and he played the rest of his career with Cleveland.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
2 years to Kansas City, technically a year and a half, then 8 years with Cleveland. So
Yeah. So we finished 10-4, win the division, and the playoffs start, and we got the Cardinals.
Yep. And so in the regular season they beat the Cardinals 28-24.
Mm-hmm. It was a close game.
It was a different story in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that one you can chalk up to the weather. You can chalk it up to the weather. It was perfect Viking weather for football. And the Cardinals still played tough, but what Chuck Foreman had was the Viking offense.
Whew. The reason I will never live in Minnesota.
What was the temperature?
19 degrees with a wind chill of 9.
Dude, that's a heat wave. That is a heat wave. 19 degrees? Oh, yeah, that's shorts weather.
It's 61 right here, right now.
Yeah, that's shorts weather, especially in December. What was the date of that game?
That was December 21st.
Yep, just before Christmas. Yep.
And it was so the score: Earl Thomas, 13-yard touchdown reception from Jim Hart. John Gillum, 16 yards from Tarkenton. Fred Cox, 37-yard field goal. Nate Wright, 20-yard fumble return. John Gillum, 38-yard pass. Chuck Foreman, 4-yard rush, and then Terry Metcalf scored at the end.
That Nate Wright fumble return was only 20 yards?
That's what it says.
I thought it was longer than that.
Maybe he ran across the field.
No, Alan Page forced a fumble to Metcalf. The ball came out, and he picked it up and just ran down the sideline. I always thought it was longer than 20 yards.
But so Chuck Foreman had 23 rushes for 114 yards.
Yep.
Dave Osborne, 16 for 67. And then Chuck Foreman also had 5 receptions for 54 yards.
We were running the ball well that game. I remember that much. The running game was clicking.
John Gillum had one rushing for 16 yards.
Mm. What did the Cardinals do?
They sacked Jim Hart twice. Total yards for the Cardinals were 284.
I thought they got Jim Hart 5 times.
They got Jim Hart twice, it says here.
Huh.
Sacked twice for 16 yards.
How many times was Tarkin attacked?
Once. Hart only had a passer rating of 58.3. He was 18 of 40.
Yeah, he was throwing a lot of his passes.
That weather's not conducive to that type of offense.
No, it's not. It's not.
So interceptions, Mark Arnson.
Arnson.
Yeah, Roger Werhall.
Roger Worley.
Yeah, so these people spell their names so. And then Jeff Wright had the one for Minnesota.
Okay.
Other than that scoring one,
that was a fumble.
Yeah,
that was a fumble.
And then nothing really in the kicking game. Fred Cox missed an extra point.
Yeah, that's why it's only 30.
Kicks returns. Sam McCullum had 2 for 49.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like the game wasn't a contest.
It wasn't. It was all Vikings from start to finish. That's why I keep saying, I asked you if they only got credit for 2 sacks, because I swear they got more than 2. Are you looking at Wikipedia or Pro Football Reference?
I'm getting all the stats of the game from Pro Football Reference.
Okay.
Because I understand that's probably more legit than Wikipedia, because anybody can make anything on Wikipedia.
Well, if I could, because I still got reports from back in the day, and I think I remember them saying that they were 5 sacks. The Vikings got 5 sacks.
Maybe they went back and looked at it. So when you go to team stats on here, it just says 2 sacks.
Yeah. I remember reading in the paper, and this was the St. Paul paper back then, because I used to always read the old papers, that the Vikings had about 4 or 5 sacks. And I don't have anything here to bring that up.
I'm going to see if. Okay, let me see.
You know what? Now I'm curious. Hold on. I'll be right back. Now I'm curious. Hang on. I'll be right back.
Yeah, let's see. 1974 season. That's weird because everywhere I'm looking, it says the same thing.
See, wherever I need stats, I go to this big old honking book right here. See what they say. Hey, Sarah, what's up? Let's see.
Pro Football Reference could be wrong. They're not wrong very often. If it was Wikipedia, I would definitely be saying, let's question it. But let me see. Let me go to Wikipedia, see if it does say anything different.
Yeah.
We're doing live fact checked on air, people.
Yeah, that's what we're doing on air. We are doing it on air because we have some discrepancies in their stats.
Okay, let's see.
And guess what? Hang on. They don't even have it here for where I'm looking. Yeah, he only got sacked 2 times. He only got credit for 2. Targeted 1, and he got 2.
Aided by the Cardinals' turnovers, the Vikings scored 16 points in less than 7 minutes in the third quarter on their first possession of the game. St. Louis drove to the 35-yard line, but lost the ball on a failed 4th-and-1 conversion attempt. St. Louis eventually got onto the scoreboard first with quarterback John Hart 13-yard touchdown pass to Earl Thomas. But Minnesota countered when Fred Tarkenton completed a 16-yard touchdown pass to John Gilliam. The 7-7 tie would be the last to the end of the half. The Cardinals had a chance to take the lead with a 56-yard drive to the Vikings 6-yard line, but Jim Baker missed a 23-yard field goal as time expired. On the third play of the second half, Vikings defensive back Jeff Wright intercepted a pass from Hart and returned it 18 yards to set up Cox's 37-yard field goal, giving his team a 10-7 lead. Exactly 60 seconds later on the Cardinals' ensuing drive, Terry Metcalf lost a fumble while being leveled by Vikings linemen Alan Page and Carl Eller.
Yep.
Cornerback Nick Wright picked up the loose ball and returned it 20 yards for a touchdown that increased the lead to 17-7. A few moments later, Tarkenton finished off a 16-point quarter with a 38-yard touchdown pass to Gillen. In the fourth quarter, Vikings running back Chuck Foreman, who finished the game with 114 yards rushing and 5 receptions for 54 yards, recorded a 4-yard touchdown run to give the Vikings a 37 lead. By the time Metcalf rushed for 11-yard fourth quarter touchdown, the game was already out of reach.
Yeah, so, it was completely dominated by the Vikings.
Yeah, doesn't really have. Does that book at the time of possession? I couldn't imagine getting hit by Page and Eller at the same time. Oh my gosh, I can see why he fumbled.
No, it doesn't have time of possession, but the Vikings ran what? How many plays? The Vikings ran 66 plays. The Cardinals ran 67. Yeah, it's.
I don't even know who Frozen North is. Now, I am the Guardian I am
This
the
is a
guard.
regular encyclopedia.
I am the
Yeah.
gatekeeper. Tony is he's the
I've got books from
like when you get like Indiana Jones, that Knight Templar who's guarding the 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 glass, the goblet everybody's going for, you know what I'm talking about.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, Indiana Jones, that scene where the Knight Templar is guarding
Yeah.
the drink, the thing you drink out of. I can't remember the name. I'm drawing a blank.
The goblet.
Goblet. Tony is that guy. I'm the guy who's before him.
Oh, they're annoying, Sarah. Ever since they won the division, they've become annoying.
Yeah.
They're just it's beyond. I can't deal with them anymore. I just laugh at them because they'll be right back to bottom feeders. And
well, the thing about we were in a chat with earlier. I was watching Lupicus on the North Roundtable, and they were doing a mock draft.
Mm-hmm.
And there's line fans in there, and they're talking like they're the 49ers, man. They're talking like they've been dominant for all these years. It's like, come on, guys. You guys do it 2 years in a row, then maybe we'll talk.
I would say something if the thing was up there. I'll keep it clean. You guys been slapped around for the last 40 years. Jeez. You haven't done anything.
So the next game was against the Rams.
The NFC Championship. Now, what was the temperature of that game?
It was 29 degrees. And it was 29 degrees. Let me go to Pro Football Reference. Let me see what they say about the Pro Football Reference. Weather is a little bit better than.
Now, 29 degrees is literally a heat wave.
Yeah, but they have the wind chill and everything. Wind chill was 19 degrees.
Still 29 degrees? That's shorts weather.
29 degrees with wind chill of 19.
That's shorts weather.
Vikings are favored by 5.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Favored by 5.5? Damn. That's a lot.
Yeah. On an unusually balmy day for December in Minnesota, the Vikings were able to hold the ball for the final 5:37 of the game to preserve a 14-10 victory. After a scoreless first quarter, Minnesota quarterback Fran Tarkenton threw a 29-yard touchdown to Jim Lash. Rams kicker David Ray later added a 27-yard field goal to cut the lead to 7-3 before halftime. In the third quarter, Los Angeles advanced the ball from their own 1-yard line to the Minnesota 1-yard line. The big play on the drive was a 73-yard pass to Harold Jackson, who was finally pushed out of bounds at the Vikings tee by safety Jeff Wright. With the ball inside the 1-yard line, Rams guard Tom Mack was controversially called for illegal procedure. Replay showed Mack did not move, moved back to the 6-yard line. The Rams were forced to pass for a touchdown on third down, but the pass was deflected by Vikings linebacker Wally Hillenberg, intercepted the ball in the end zone for a touchback.
Jackie Wallace tipped it, and Hilgenberg intercepted it.
Minnesota then went on a 15-yard play. It took almost 8 minutes off the clock on Dave Osborne's 4-yard touchdown run. With 7:15 left to play in the game, the Rams cut the lead deficit to 14-10 with Harold Jackson's 44-yard touchdown reception. Then after forcing the Vikings to pump, Los Angeles drove the Minnesota 45-yard line, but a third down sack forced the Rams to punt the game, and the Vikings kept the ball the rest of the game to run out the clock.
Yeah, Doug Sutherland got the sack. I do remember that Doug Sutherland got that sack. James Harris was a quarterback. On that drive, that game-winning drive, what's his name? Chuck Foreman had a 7-yard gain. It was a good gain. He fumbled the ball. Luckily, Chuck Goodrum recovered it.
Foreman had 3 fumbles.
Yeah, he fumbled 3 times. Goodrum recovered 1, kept the drive alive. But yeah, that game was. I mean, it was a hard-fought game.
They sacked Harris twice.
Yep.
And then Vikings were sacked. Tarkenton was sacked once. Oh, sorry, no, he was sacked twice as well.
Okay.
Rushing Foreman 22 for 80. He had no receptions.
Right. Davey, you're thinking of 76 when Sammy Johnson scored the game winner. That was 76. Sammy Johnson, I think, was still in San Francisco that 74. Yeah, and Osborne got the technically the game winner. How many yards was it? 1 yard or 4 yards?
The last touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
The last touchdown I think was 4 yards. No, 1 yard. Dave Osborne 1 yard.
It was
Harold Jackson had a 40. I don't know who was covering Harold Jackson, but
it was probably Nate. No,
he had 3 receptions for 139 yards.
that might have been Jackie Wallace.
Let's see. Jackie Wallace, Nate Wright, Jeff Wright, and Paul Krause were the starting secondary.
Yeah, it might have been Jackie Wallace.
Jackie Wallace must have been the weakest link in that defense.
Jackie Wallace took over for Bobby Bryant.
Because I don't remember Jackie Wallace that much.
He played with us for 2 years, and then he played for
Wow, he was 6'3", 197.
Who, Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't small, but he was. I think we traded him the next year.
74 was actually the only year he played for us.
73, we drafted him in 73.
And then 70. Well, he didn't play a game then. And then he played 1 year with Minnesota, is what it says here on Pro Football Reference.
Okay, don't listen to Pro Football Reference.
And then 2 years for Baltimore, 3 years for the Rams.
That's right. He went to Baltimore. He went to Baltimore and the Rams. I think we traded him to Baltimore.
They switched him to safety after he left Minnesota.
Yep.
So that might have been him getting burnt if he got moved to safety when he left. I mean, that's safety size. That's safety size, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we had him playing corner. But he was drafted as a defensive back. So
what doesn't annoy you, Sarah?
Yes, really. Sarah, you need to stay out of them lion rooms because they will annoy you faster than anything. So like I tell everybody, George, if you go to the Super Bowl, win or lose, you get a ring.
Yeah.
What we don't have is a trophy. So, and trust me, with the way things are going right now for the Lions, I don't even pick them to repeat.
So we already talked about the next game. When we do a season recap, when the Vikings go to a Super Bowl, we don't talk about the Super Bowl because we already did a Super Bowl show. Plus,
we already went down misery lane earlier on another show. As a matter of fact, we went down misery lane earlier in this one with the Super Bowl. So 2 weeks for the big letdown. Yeah, 2 weeks to wait for the big letdown. Yeah, right, Bobby fell down, whatever you say.
Well, Sarah, I think that has more to do with you being of the female.
That has more to do with you being a female and a Viking fan.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. You probably know more football than that whole damn fan base.
Yeah.
So
the only one who I can really stand, well, there's two YouTubers who I can as Lions. I think Micro Mike and Dose Dion. That's it. Those are like the only two.
Because they're realist.
They're realistic, yes.
They're realistic. So Sarah had a really good question. Why did we fail in the Super Bowl? Your guess is as good as mine, Sarah. The players then can't figure that out.
Were they unprepared?
I think a lot of it had to do with coaching. Like I said before, Chuck Foreman even said it. They changed their offensive game plan in 2 of the Super Bowls. They changed it for Pittsburgh, which was 74, and they changed it for Oakland. They didn't go with the game plan that was successful for them during the year. And, and then Chuck's like questionable play calling. He still doesn't understand why they gave the ball to Brent McClanahan at the goal line in Super Bowl 11. Chuck is an all-pro. He's all NFC. Why didn't they?
Is that the whole Seattle not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch and throwing it type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Only difference was Chuck wasn't playing for a contract. Chuck was playing to win the damn Super Bowl. You know? Bud was a defensive guy, but all around, Bud was a smart head coach. He knew both sides of the ball. But technically, Bud was our special teams coordinator. But he was an all around good all around good head coach. Bud was more hands on than any of the coaches now. Yeah, Davey. Buddy Ryan was never DC with the Vikings. When Buddy got here in '76, he was the defensive line coach. He took over for Jack Patera. Neil Armstrong was the defensive coordinator. And then when Neil
the astronaut.
Yeah. And then when Neil got the job,
I just got to clarify because you know.
And then when Neil got the job in Chicago, he brought Buddy Ryan with him. So
Burnsy was the offensive coordinator.
Burns was the offensive coordinator. Yeah. Tarkenton had a lot of input with the offense, which kind of pissed off like certain players like Ron Yeary and bugged him all.
Yeah, he was drafted by the
Lakers.
Lakers.
He was drafted. He played with the Minneapolis Lakers. Yep.
He played for the Eagles.
And played for the Eagles. And he played in, I think he won, I want to say he played in Canada, but he coached in Canada.
Yeah. He wore 86 for the Eagles, I think.
Was it 86? He wore 13 at the U.
Right. He wore
University of Minnesota.
He wore 86 for the Eagles, and I think he was at 40. Was it like 40? Like he wore, for the Lakers, he wore like a weird number as well.
I think 13.
So
I think he wore 13.
Was it Mikan 13? No, Mikan was still.
Mikan was 99.
99. That's right. Yeah, 99. Yeah.
Yeah, Mikan.
Oh, by the way, there is an NFL quarterback wearing number 0, Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, because he'll be wearing 0 because he'll never get on the field and he sucks.
He's the first quarterback ever in the NFL.
First quarterback to wear 0. The perfect number for him because he is a 0.
So now that the history's over, we do talk a little bit modern, you know.
Gophers won the national championship in 1960.
Right. But they're also the last team to win 3 in a row. It was a long time ago. But the last team to win 3 in a row.
Hey, Davey, I don't think Fran called his own plays. I think it came out when Fran retired that he didn't call his own plays. That's why I say he had a lot of input, but he didn't call his own plays. I don't think the Vikings have ever had a quarterback that called their own plays. But I think Fran had the leniency, and he had he could audible or change anytime he felt like it. Which probably explains some of the plays that we ran back in the day. But he had more latitude to do that. Bud and Burnsy gave him that much latitude because Fran was intelligent. He was a very smart guy. He's a cocky, arrogant SOB, but he was very intelligent. So
I can see. So there's a quote from Fran Tarkenton. If you take it out of context, you can see where people get that from. Mm-hmm. So, quote, I called all the plays. Hall of Fame Fran Tarkenton said, I made sure I was prepared by the coaches to understand what defenses were going on and also to get their input on how to attack a defense. So, he didn't actually call the plays, but he was prepared.
He had a lot of leeway.
Yeah.
Cap did not call his own. Cap was not that bright. Cap was a hell of a player, but if they didn't like to play, they would voice their displeasure towards it. Joe would, especially Joe Cap would. Fran would also. But Bud gave Fran that leeway to kind of be his own, you know. He trusted him enough with that offense to let him do what he did. And yes, Sarah, Fran did work on Tuesdays. I don't know what days the team had off back in the day, if they had any. It was a different NFL back then. Once the football season started, that was it. So I don't know if they had any days off. Maybe Saturday they had a walkthrough. Yes, he was. His father was a preacher. Fran was a Southern Baptist.
Yeah, there's an article from Los Angeles Times talking about this. Archie Manning called his plays.
No wonder they sucked.
Staubach called some of his plays.
He called some of his plays, right?
Yeah. When I came into the league, wherever those 11 guys were out there on defense on first down, that's the same 11 when I got to 3rd and 8, said Manning. We had a tight end, 2 wide receivers, and 2 backs. We didn't bring a 3rd wide receiver. We never had a second tight end except on short yardage.
Yeah.
If the coach trusted the quarterback to call plays, you could do it. I guess the coach trusted him to call the plays.
Well, put it this way, the team's going to those 3 wide receiver sets, right? You know who the Vikings' 3rd wide receiver was? Chuck Foreman. That was their 3rd wide receiver. They very seldom went into 3 wide receiver sets because they had Foreman out of the backfield, and they could line him up anywhere on the field to get a mismatch.
Yeah, they're saying the quarterback today couldn't do it because there's too much going on.
You really would, for today's NFL quarterbacks, you would literally have to dumb it down. You really would.
You have to go back to like the wing tee.
Right. You really have to dumb it down. And the players nowadays, I think they rely more on their ability more than their smarts. The younger ones. Older players, that changes as time goes by. You get smarter. You can't play at the same velocity you played at when you were younger. So then it becomes mind over matter. So then you got to start using your head. George, the thing with Bud liked veteran players. He didn't have to do a lot of yelling and screaming at the guys because they had veterans. That's why he leaned on the Carl Edwards, Jim Marshall, those guys.
So Van Brocklin did say that Tarkenton called his own plays. He's like, yeah, Van Brocklin's like, yeah, I hated scrambling quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are only supposed to run out of sheer terror. I told Tarkenton, I said, yeah, you can call your own plays when it's 3rd and 40. He's like, I let him call them.
Okay, you're only supposed to run out of sheer terror. Norm Van Brocklin didn't play behind that offensive line. It was bad.
He was probably drunk when he said that comment, too.
He probably was.
Smoking a heater.
He was probably smoking a heater and drunk in his goddamn hotel room. Yeah, he probably was drunk. And he hated Tarkenton from the start.
He said Van Brocklin was a stationary. This is a story from 1965 Sports Illustrated. It says the Dutchman is a half an inch away. Coach Norm Van Brocklin has alternately sweet-talked and whiplashed his young Vikings into contention for the NFL title. His chief weapon is a gambling, scrambling quarterback called Peach.
Yeah, he hated Tarkenton.
He says a quarterback should only run from sheer terror, said Norman Van Brocklin a few years ago when he was non-running quarterback. In the 5th year as a head coach, the Minnesota Vikings' 5th year as a football team, Van Brocklin conceivably could win the Western Conference Championship of the National Football League with Fran Peach Tarkenton. He was on the cover for that year. He's a quarterback who runs from sheer with delight. I cannot change him, Van Brocklin says philosophically. Scrambling is his style. When it gets to 3rd and 40, I'll let him call the plays. The Vikings, who open the season next week against the Western Championship Colts, Day's big game, probably have the best 3rd and 40 offensive football. A doubtful but electrifying distinction for a team that rarely gets into the kind of jam. Their 3rd and 40 play almost the same. Tarkenton takes the ball, retreats hopefully into the blocking pocket, then begins to improvise. He leaves the pocket, tripping nimbly a step or two ahead of the 260-pound defenders and confusing his blockers beyond repair. As he wanders further and further behind the line of scrimmage, he seems to know exactly where the tacklers are and just how to avoid them. He watches as his receivers invent patterns downfield. Finally, he throws the ball, and often not as he gets the first down, and occasionally he gets a touchdown. This may be the single most exciting play in football, exciting to the fans and to Van Brocklin, who is far more active following Tarkenton from the sideline, as never a quarterback on the field. Van Brock, it's reading the writing in the '60s is way different than it is today.
It was an exciting play, but not to the defensive linemen that were chasing his ass.
Van Brocklin was a stationary quarterback for two reasons. First, he could run first enough to escape from an enraged turtle, and second, he was taught exactly in his career that a quarterback is not supposed to run. Well, that's like we're talking
50s. And he was in the 50s. He was in the 50s, and this was the 60s. When Van Brocklin played, he didn't have to deal with Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen and Willie Davis.
I learned quarterbacking from Jim Akins at Oregon. Van Brocklin said the other day at Jack's the Toot Shore. Is that
who?
Jack's the Toots Shore. TOOTS SHOR of Bemidji, Minnesota.
Never heard of
it. Which is the Vikings training town. So I guess it's a bar in where the Vikings usually train in Bemidji. Van Brocklin has gone to Oregon from a high school in California, where he was a tailback in high school, which tells you all you need to know about the running ability of the football players where he's from. He's like, I had to throw, I didn't need to run. Yeah. So he's like, you're right out of the pocket. He says, you're right out of the pocket and you're on your way home, he told Van Brocklin. Anyone who lets you into the pocket is on his way home, he told the offensive line. He says, Van Brocklin says he rolled out all the time, and I ran towards the sideline, but I never really ran. So, yeah. So he talked about his college and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, he said he let Fran Tarkenton call his plays when it was 3rd and 4.
Yeah, but 1st and 2nd down were another story.
Yeah. Tarkenton was the first draft choice. Tarkenton and Tommy Mason were the two draft choices Van Brocklin made as a Vikings coach.
And who made Rip Hawkins? Because Rip Hawkins was number 2.
The team was stocked with expensive cast-offs from the rest of the league. Most of them overage and out of condition, plus other rookies obtained in the draft. Oh, it says Tarkenton and Tommy Mason were the only high-quality athletes. Like, okay. This is written so weird. It's amazing how stuff in the 60s was written compared to today. Yeah. Yeah, so it's so this all started from me looking up the Fran Tarkenton calls home plays.
Yeah.
It's mostly the SI story is mostly about Van Brocklin, but that was kind of cool.
You know what? I'll have to do is I'll have to ask Chuck Foreman. I plan to go on one of those meet and greets. I'll ask him when I see him. Did Fran call his own plays? From what I understood, he didn't. It came out after he retired that he didn't call his own plays.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me.
I've heard some stuff today that the Giants could jump the Vikings up to number 3.
I've been hearing that for the last 2 weeks.
If the Giants trade the number 5 pick and Daniel Jones to the Patriots.
I've heard they were going to trade up and they were going to. Some places have J.J. McCarthy going to New England. Some have McCarthy's sticking around, or they have Drake May fallen. And then if the Giants do jump up, they're going to take Jaden Daniels. But
this comment right here. I told Buffalo Bill fans, I said, you guys like Stephon Diggs now. But when the going gets tough and things aren't going the way he wants them to go, he's going
to become a diva, and he's going to be gone.
He will ask out.
Yeah.
I said that on Facebook today. I said he Diggs is diva. So some idiot goes, oh, so every player that asks for a trade is a diva? I'm like, how does that correlate to Stephon Diggs?
Well, here's the funny part. He wanted out of Buffalo, right? Didn't Gabe Davis leave?
Gabe Davis is gone, but he didn't ask to leave. He just left. Yeah.
I mean, he could have been the number one receiver again. I mean, they didn't get anybody worth, that would change it, but yeah, he's not the brightest. He really isn't.
But there's also, I heard, I don't know where the rumor started, but with the Buffalo Bills blowing it up, like Minnesota giving them 11-23 next year's one for Josh Allen.
I don't want Josh Allen.
So
I don't want Josh Allen. I've seen enough of Josh Allen. I don't want him. Yeah.
So, Davey, was there a bar? What is it? I cannot say that.
Too sure.
Was that in Bemidji? Whatever. How the hell do you say that city?
Kissimmee?
No, the one in Minnesota. Bemidji.
Bemidji.
So was there? So do you remember that place, Davey, that they're talking about in that article? Yeah. Well, we did a ranking of the Vikings coaches of all time. There's only been 11 of them. So we said KOC is inclusive right now, but we had the list starting from the worst down to the best.
The worst for me personally, Brad Childress.
Kick-ass offense.
Yeah. Brad Childress. He's the worst.
I think less Stickle.
So yeah, but Stickle only got a year to live that mistake.
Yeah, but he also set the franchise back, though.
Not really. We got all the thing that helped us was the USFL folded. That's the thing that helped us the most. I don't think the Patriots are going to take a quarterback. I don't think they are. That's why I think Minnesota's probably going to. I think the Vikings got something worked out when New England are going to.
I think the Giants are the wild card, because if the Giants do say, "Hey, we'll give you 5 of Daniel Jones,"
nobody wants Daniel Jones.
Yeah, but the Patriots can rework his contract because they're not the ones eating the dead money. The Giants are.
I wouldn't take Daniel Jones. He's no better than friggin' Mac Jones. God. Who's calling the is it Kraft that's calling the shots in New England now?
Kraft has said that he will draft for a quarterback. I mean, he will take a trade. They have a lot of holes, man. They need more than just a quarterback.
They need more than a quarterback. They got so many holes it's not even funny. They need like a whole new team.
I mean, KJ Osborne's their number 1 receiver.
Good luck to that. Good luck.
I know they have the other guy, but
who's the other guy?
They just signed him last year.
Didn't they sign Juju?
Let me see. Yeah, they got Juju. Let me see. So I'm looking at it now.
Okay.
So for wide receivers, they have. Wow. Okay. So they got KJ Osborne, Jalen Rager, Keyshawn Boutte, whatever how you say his name, Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne. Yeah, so I don't know. The receiving core is not awful.
Yeah, who's throwing the ball to him right now? It's Zappy, isn't it?
Bailey Zappi right now is the quarterback. Jacoby Brissett, they signed him.
Well, that's right, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
So he would be the bridge. I don't know why they just don't wait next year and get ears.
I don't either.
You know, I think Roderick Kraft has got this notion that they can still compete. It's like, no, you can't, dude. You can't compete.
I don't know if I want Caleb Williams, man. Too much of a baby for me.
He's got some. I see he's got some issues. He's got some issues. I just look at him. I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I really want to deal with that head.
You're
case.
right, Sarah. Patriots wide receiver core is better than Buffalo's.
One difference: Bill's got a quarterback.
I don't know.
I think that window's closed on Buffalo. I really do.
Oh yeah.
I think that window's closed. So, oh, by the way, folks, we're not going to have a free for all this Friday. It'll be next Friday. So,
yeah,
this Friday we need a break.
we do need a break because I don't think it's this Monday. I think it's next Monday, not this Monday coming up, but the one after that. I got to confer with my brother-in-law, but we will probably be having the wrestling show.
Okay. Yeah, let me know. That's going to be an interesting one, folks. We're going to have a lot to talk about. If you're a wrestling fan, check it out. It's going to be a very interesting show. I got some questions.
Well, there is steam about Josh Allen being traded.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is.
But think about it. Why if the Vikings get Josh Allen, Aaron Jones, JJ, Jordan Addison, TJ when he comes back, that offensive line's above average, and that defense, the way that wouldn't Josh Allen be top one? He'd be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC. He's still young.
Yeah, but do you really want that money?
Well, how much? I don't think he makes that much.
You just got off of one big contract.
He makes less than Kirk.
Everybody makes less than Kirk. Jesus. Everybody does more than Kirk also.
So Josh Allen's contract in 2025 is $14 million.
14 mil. What was Kirk?
Kirk is 50. Kirk get $90 million this year. $40 million for being on the roster. So his base salary is $14 million. He get the 3.3 of his signing bonus comes out. And then I guess he has a roster of 25. So he makes $25 million.
Right.
His cap is $60 million, but the Bills would eat that. So for 2025 or 2026, so 2024, which is this year, it's $8.5 million, 8.6 million. That's it.
Okay.
14 million 2025, 22 and 2026.
Okay.
And then it goes down to 14 and then 15.
Okay, here's my question for you. Say the Vikings don't get McCarthy or May. Are you cool at staying at 11 and getting a defensive tackle?
I think if the Vikings for some reason can't move up, like Kwesi thinks it's too rich to move up, and let's say he's like the three quarterbacks they want are gone. I don't think Kwesi's going to reach for a quarterback. I don't think he's going to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback. I think that I would be on the phone with Buffalo being, I'll give you my 11, I'll give you my 23, and I'll give you a first next year. and then
For
maybe
Allen?
then get back a second for Buffalo, so you have a second round pick
For Allen?
for Josh Allen. Yeah, with that contract being a top quarterback, like I said, he only makes $25 million. I mean, that's compared to what we are paying Kirk Cousins. I mean, you can build around a $25 million quarterback and one
But
that's
Allen's
better.
got his moments where he's more frustrating than Kirk.
Yeah, but at least he'll run when it's 3rd and 3 and there's a hole. Is he as accurate?
That's another thing too.
Is he as accurate as Cousins? No, he's not as accurate.
And that will drive KOC up a wall. You know how they preach accuracy.
I know.
That will drive him up a wall.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't think going to Davey's comment, I don't think Darnold is going to be as bad as people think he's going to be.
I think Darnold will be fine. I think Darnold will be fine. If you've got Aaron Jones, pound the damn rock. You got to upgrade that interior of the offensive line, though. You can't keep parading Bradbury out there and expect him to be any different. He's gonna, if anything, he'll probably regress. He's not that good in the first place. You got to get a left guard unless they're going to run with Brandel. I don't think they're bringing back Dalton Reisner, even if he does have a agent who most of his players are with the Vikings. I don't think they're bringing Reisner back. So,
no, Diggs is just a fucking diva.
Yeah, Diggs just has issues. That's
the reason why he was a 5th round pick. His attitude.
How many players became active pro wrestlers? Like are wrestling right now or over time? Because most of your pro wrestlers have played some football.
Or are you talking former Vikings who are wrestlers?
Well,
because you got Roman Reigns,
Roman Reigns. You've got a couple. You got the one big guy who went to camp with the Vikings. He's
Brock
in
Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar is the other one. The other guy, I can't even pronounce his name, but he was down in NXT with Apollo Crews. Madcap Moss is Mike Morales from the University of Minnesota. Right now, Baron Corbin was in training camp with the Chiefs at one time. I can't think of any. You know what? I don't know if Reisner does. He's got a new agent. He's got Drew Rosenhaus. Rosenhaus has a bunch of clients with the Vikings, and so yeah, I'm sure he's trying to. Yeah, Kittle's probably gonna wrestle. He'll probably put on some So, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if WWE's trying to get what's his name to join Kelsey, Jason.
Was it Joe Adenoy?
Joe Anoa'i.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he was a Viking. He was a Jaguar too. Angelo Mosca was played for years. He got, matter of fact, Joe Cap punched him when they were old and gray. Mosca played. Junkyard Dog played. Paul Orndorff. Dusty Rhodes. He played with the Boston Patriots. Wahoo McDaniel. Let's see. Bob Duncombe. Lex Luger, he played with the Packers. Ernie Ladd, he's another one. I'm missing Russ Francis did wrestle, so he was a wrestler. Who else? I'm missing guy. Steve McMichael, Mongo McMichael. Let's see.
All right. So Tito Santana,
Tito Santana, he was with the Chiefs.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan,
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Big Van Vader,
Oh, Leon White. Yes, Leon White.
Brock Lesnar, Dick the Bruiser,
Dick the Bruiser. Yeah. Brock Lesnar.
Bronco Nagurski.
Bronco Nagurski was a wrestler. Yes, he was. Leon
Goldberg.
Amelini was a wrestler.
Wow, Goldberg with hair. Woo, that looks weird.
Oh, when he had the mohawk?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Big Cat Ernie Ladd,
Yeah. Frank Goodish was Bruiser Brody.
Wahoo McDaniel,
Wahoo McDaniel, yes.
Ron Simmons.
Ron Simmons was with the Browns.
Played for Florida State.
And he was big at Florida State. Steve Williams, Dr. Death, he was Oklahoma. All-star lineman. Tully Blanchard played quarterback at I forget what he was quarterback at a Texas school. He ran the wishbone.
Lex Luger.
Luger was a Packer. Baron Von Roschke played end at Nebraska.
Marcus Carvon.
What's his name?
Monty Brown. Monty Brown.
Monty Brown. Yes, he was with the Buffalo Bills, I believe.
Leon White, as you said, Vader. Yeah. So
Baron Corbin. There's so many. Hardboiled Haggerty. He played with HB Haggerty. He played with the Packers. Vern had a bunch of guys that were football players that ended up wrestling in the AWA. Jim Brunzell was at the university. He went to camp with the Washington.
Titus O'Neil.
Titus O'Neil played football. Ric Flair played football at the University of Minnesota.
Brian Pillman.
Brian Pillman, yes, he was with the Bengals.
Baron Corbin.
Baron Corbin, yes.
We already said Ron Simmons. JBL.
JBL did play. Okay. I haven't seen the wrestler yet, George.
He was drafted by the Raiders in 1980.
Okay.
But he was cut in the preseason.
Damn.
Moho Raleigh.
Who?
Moho Raleigh played for the Packers, looks like.
Oh, Mojo Rawley.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a Packer.
Well, Rob Gronkowski, I think, is doing wrestling too.
Yeah, Gronkowski's wrestling. Yeah, Mojo Rawley is that Matt Cardona? No, Mojo Rawley, I forget his name, but yeah, I remember him in a Packer outfit.
Well, The Rock, obviously.
Yeah, The Rock.
He played football. Stone Cold Steve Austin played football.
Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, The Rock lost his job to
John Cena
in Miami. Cena played football. Cena was a guard at a small college.
Yeah. Enzo Amore.
Enzo Amore played football?
He played Division III, Salisbury.
Oh, okay.
Big E Langston.
Big E played at Iowa.
Bo Dallas.
Bo Dallas played football. I think Braid, his brother, played.
He played at Florida.
Bo Dallas played at Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bray Wyatt.
Who did Bray play with?
He played backup center. Troy University.
He went to Troy. Okay.
Soul. The Usos. They both played University of West Alabama.
Okay.
Darren Young. He played for Frederick. His real name is Frederick Rosser. He played at Fairleigh Dickinson. Yeah. Jack Swagger played.
That's Jack Hager. He played at Oklahoma.
Yeah. R-Truth played for Harding.
Okay.
His real name is Ryan Killings.
Ryan Killing, yeah. Killings.
Titus O'Neill, Brian, we talked about. Eric Rowan. Minnesota-born Eric Rowan. He's part of the Wyatt family.
Yeah, Eric Rowan, Redbeard. Eric
he
Redbeard. That's what he wrestles under now.
Played at Minnesota Morris. Real name is Joseph Rude.
Okay.
Yeah. We just talked about Mojo. John Bradshaw, talked about him. Paul, Mr. Wonderful Ordnoff.
Orndorff played, he played with Saints. Yeah,
He played football at the University of Tampa, which doesn't have a team anymore.
Oh, they don't?
No. Then Vader went to Colorado.
Mm-hmm. He was a Oiler. Leon White.
He was drafted by the Rams.
Rams, that's right. He was with the Rams.
Yeah. Injury ended his career.
Yep.
Okay, so we're getting into ones we've already talked about. Let's see. Bob Pitt, Brian Pillman, talked about him. Ahmad Johnson played for the University of Tennessee, middle linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys in 90 and 91.
Ahmad Johnson,
His real name is Anthony Tony Norris.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Puke
Drozdoff, he just passed away. He played for the Broncos.
Went to the University of Maryland, played for the Jets and Broncos.
Yep, played for the Broncos.
Mongo Michael.
Baron Packer.
God, Bronco Nujinski, all black and white.
And
then Bronco, it's all black and white video.
Oh, God.
Sarah, there's a lot. So,
Sarah, if you want to watch any kind of wrestling, SmackDown for now is on Fox. But
hey, Mom, I thought you said you went to bed.
You can catch it on Friday nights. That's WWE.
Yes, Mom. We're still going at it. You know, our shows are 2.5 to 3 hours long. I thought you were going to bed.
Oh yeah, what's going on, Mom? Angelo Mosca played in Canada. Yep. Yeah, he played in Canada. A bunch of those guys played in Canada. Ernie Ladd was a Charger and a Chief. Yeah, Cap used to get into bar fights a lot, even when he was a player.
So who drank more, Cap or Kramer?
Kramer. Tommy. To this day, it's still Tommy.
I'm not as huge wrestling fan as Tony is. Like I have not watched wrestling since the last time I literally watched wrestling was NWO, WCW. That's how long it's been since.
Well, I go through my phases where I'll watch it, then I won't pay attention, then I'll start watching it again. But
it's basically a male soap opera.
Yeah, but I mean, when I start to know people that were in the business and they started telling me behind the scenes, then I started paying attention.
I don't have the soundbite, but
yeah, Ric Flair's still with us.
Yep.
His daughter's wrestling now. She's hurt. She's got a knee injury. Yeah, he lost Reed. Yep.
Yeah,
he lost Reed.
It's funny, and this is a story that that you can ask my brother-in-law when he comes on. There used to be a show, I don't know if it's still on, but it was just recently where Triple H and Stephanie hired other retired wrestlers to go out and find merchandise for the Hall of Fame. And there was this Ric Flair coat that he wore.
One of his robes.
One of his robes, and it was one he only wore once. And his robes were very heavy, by the way. And they didn't know where it was. They asked Ric Flair. He's like, I don't know. Well, it turns out that he just left it in his hotel room when he left. And the maid who cleaned his room kept it. And then finally she put it up for sale and some guy bought it. So I asked my brother-in-law, I said, how did you forget something like that? He's like, they call you and tell you got to go. You just go. He's like,
and knowing Ric Flair, he was probably drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing Ric Flair, he was probably drunk. He's been known to do a ton of things. Not all nice things either. There's a ton of stories about him.
Yeah. See, I grew up in Florida, and Florida, other than New York, I think was the best wrestling league out there.
No.
Um,
Is
from
it-
watching, from watching the Dark Side of the Ring, they said the Florida one was.
Well, and see, what's his name? They brought that up with Warren Sapp. They were talking about it, him and Rich
Yes,
Eisen.
Sarah. I bet you did like Bret the Hitman Hart.
He said, because Warren Sapp, they asked him, did you feel bad taking The Rock's job? He's like, no, because we knew he was going to wrestle, and they're like, and it's like, so you knew he was going to WWE. They're like, no, that's not the wrestling we were thinking. They were going to wrestle in Florida. That's what they called real wrestling, where you went, where you wrestled in the tents and you wrestled in the schools and stuff like that. WWE was just like show. It wasn't even real wrestling. But the territory days were probably the best.
Yeah. We just did. My wife just watched the Dark Side of the Ring Harley race.
Yeah, that he. You watch those shows, you just end up feeling so bad for the wrestlers. You just do, because they got screwed over one way or another. It's just sad, but that was the nature of the business. They screwed a lot of the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Jake the Snake is one of the few that from the old school that's still with us. He had to work through a bunch of his demons too. He was he showed up in AEW. He's done some things down there. He might be working behind the scenes, but yeah, he's another one that's had a ton of demons to work through and stuff like that. There's so many of them. But yeah, it's the stuff behind the scenes is more interesting than what you see on the screen. The behind the scenes stuff is a lot of politics, put it that way. A lot of politics. Well, I guess now we can take the time to thank everybody for coming in and listening to us jabber about Viking history and everything else under the sun. Only thing we didn't hit tonight is music.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we didn't hit.
So give me one second here.
What you looking for?
Let's see. So, one second here. Let's see if I can. All right, so this is my brother-in-law when he wrestled.
Oh, okay.
And then let me see. I don't know if I have it still or not. Let me see.
And which Doink the Clown was he? Number 2?
I'm not sure which one he was. He can answer that question when it comes on. But he can tell you all about Doink the Cloud if you want and all that. So let me see. Is this the same one? Yep, that's the same one. Okay.
Oh, Davey, so you were on the East. You were in New York, so you had Bruno and those wrestlers, and then you had Pedro Morales too. Wow, if I could go back in time to attend one concert, which would it be?
And I think I showed this before, but that's him signing autographs as Doink the Clown. That's just a fan.
Okay.
He also has 2 books he written too.
Okay.
Um,
Sarah, if I had to go back and see any concert, I would have to say Woodstock to see Jimi Hendrix. And that was in '69. Other than that, the only other concert I'd want to see is maybe hard to say. '69 for sure to see Hendrix. In '74, who would I want to see? Well, '74 was actually the beginning of Kiss. So early Kiss or God, what was the heaviest band then? Since I'm into more of the heavy stuff. Grand Funk Railroad. That's what I want to see in '74. Grand Funk.
I know the drummer.
Oh, do you?
When I was in school down in Florida, his wife is a DJ for one of the radio stations, and I interned with her. And he come in all the time.
Oh, okay.
Was it Don? God, gosh, I can't remember his name.
Don Brewer? Not Brewer. Don Wells?
Something like that. Sonny Quinn's his wife. She's a DJ.
I thought it was Corey Wells. No, that's Three Dog Night.
No, it's Don Brewer.
Don Brewer. Yep.
Yeah.
Had a bigger fro than most brothers I knew.
So does. Last time I saw him, at least.
Yeah, he was. They're still touring. It's with, matter of fact, Bruce Kulick from Kiss is their guitarist.
So these are the 2 books that my brother-in-law has written.
Okay.
The Journal of a Journeyman.
Oh, okay.
And this is his first one.
Oh, okay.
So this is the guest that we're going to have on for the wrestling show. That's my brother-in-law.
Cool.
So, and he will tell you Dark Side of the Ring is probably the most truthful show out there.
It's like I said, and Dark Side of the Ring.
He's got some stories, man. I tell you. I'm going to ask him tell him about I'm not exactly sure how the story goes, but
was he on the plane ride from hell?
Yes, he was. I do not know if he was on a different plane ride or if he was on that plane ride or not, but he could tell you about it.
That plane, oh my God. That is, Ric Flair was on that plane, folks, and you need to hear what he did.
Looky here.
He was.
My favorite movie of all time is Shawshank Redemption.
My favorite movie of all time is Goodfellas.
Good night, Mama. Love you again.
Good night, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite movie is Goodfellas. I can watch that movie.
And my second movie that that is very hard to find. Pretty much you can't find it digital anywhere.
What, Eddie Mine?
Eddie and the Cruisers.
They stopped printing that movie, didn't they?
I think they did.
I wonder why.
I don't know. It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
They made a second one too, and that's even harder to find.
Yeah.
Eddie and the Cruisers, Eddie Lives, second one. That's even harder to find.
Remember the cartoon Heavy Metal?
Yeah.
For years, that was out of print.
Yeah.
For years.
The
one that was really out of print was what was it? Oh God, what was it? It was
Spinal Tap went out of print too, didn't it?
Yeah, Spinal Tap did too.
Yeah, Shawshank, I can watch that. My top 3 movies. I mean, Eddie the Cruisers, I like it, but it's not my top 3 movie.
Mm-hmm.
So my top 3 movies are probably Shawshank 1, Oh Brother, We're Off Out 2. I love that movie. You know,
mm-hmm.
So, you can Come at me, come at me all you want. If you don't, I don't know. I like that movie.
You can have it.
And
You can have it.
and then my third favorite movie of all time is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
I haven't seen that in years. I think my three are what? Goodfellas, Godfather. I did like Breakfast Club.
I'll
I
make
can
you an
relate.
offer you can't refuse.
Enter the Dragon.
That was his last movie, wasn't it?
That was his last movie.
There's
Yeah.
a show. There's a show called Warrior that's on Netflix. It was an HBO. It was a Max show.
Yeah.
Was it Shannon Lee, Bruce's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
is the executive producer on that?
Yeah.
But her dad wrote it.
Oh, really? She's held on to it that long?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm. And he's been gone 40 years, 50 years.
Yeah. And she said that if Brandon was still alive, that he'd be one of the main characters.
So do you believe that thing?
I don't know. I mean, blanks are blanks for a reason. They're not supposed to be mixed in with regular bullets.
No, they're not.
And
Didn't they just have that problem on the Alec Baldwin set of his movie?
yeah, but I don't think his gun was blank. I think it was real bullets. That's why they got in trouble.
Nobody got charged for
House of Flying Daggers is pretty good, but it's nowhere near Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I have Game of Death. What's Bruce Lee's last movie?
Well, Bruce Lee, Bruce saw the premiere of Enter the Dragon in Hong Kong. He didn't see it in the US. He died over in Hong Kong when the movie was done.
It's not.
Oh God, Sarah.
It's an Asian movie. Asian movies, they don't show any nudity in that.
No. What's her name is in there? Michelle
Yao.
Michelle Yao. She's in there.
Yeah.
So is
Chow Yao Fat.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Shinobi's pretty cool. Yeah.
Shinobi's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, I like movies. Don't get me wrong.
I like those cheesy kung fu movies where the dialogue is their mouths are still moving, but they're only saying 2 words.
You want to fight?
Yeah.
Fight me.
Yeah. I mean, they'll be talking forever, but they're only saying like 2 words.
Jeez, George. Poor name.
For God's sake, you people. Oh, we can't talk about anything with you.
Oh. Well, Shaving Private Ryan's probably the best transfer name.
Yeah, that was the name of a movie. That was the name
Band
of
of Brothers.
Yeah.
They're out there, people. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Well, on that note, exactly.
The Godzilla movies, the old-fashioned Godzilla, the classic old monster movies are awesome.
Yeah.
I know they're cheesy. I know they're quirky. I don't care.
They're perfect for pizza.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
They're perfect for pizza and nachos and what have you.
And the second movie for that is called Sword of Destiny. It's the second part of.
Is that the second part of Crouching Tiger?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I watched
I never saw that one.
They just released it 2022, I think.
Okay.
There's another show on Netflix that Michelle's in. It's called The Brother's Son.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I'm watching Shogun right now. There's not enough. I like that. That show's pretty cool. John Wick is probably my new series that I like.
Yeah, see, I got to sit down and watch a lot of these movies. I haven't.
Yeah.
Although I'll tell you what, I don't
have Chiller anymore. They took it off DirecTV. The channel Chiller.
What channel was that on?
Chiller. The channel was called Chiller. They played nothing but horror movies.
They got an app for it?
I don't know. Davey might be able to answer that, but they used to be on DirecTV and they took it off.
Oh, okay. I'm sure I've got an app for like movies like that. I just got to look for
Whose
it.
mom was Catholic? Bruce Lee's.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Actually, Bruce Lee died from. They did it. They did it. The autopsy show in Reels. They did an autopsy when that doctor looks at the history of Bruce Lee. Um, he went to a friend's house, and I'm not sure if he was a mistress or not. I'm not going to say yes or no
She
because
swore up and down that there was nothing going on with
they
him.
didn't talk about it on the show. They just said,
Mhm.
But he took what's what's that? The cortisone shot you take?
Yeah,
When it was the early form of that, and he took. I guess he just took too much of it, and he went to sleep and never woke up.
like an early form of steroids.
Yeah, and he just went to sleep and never woke up
He never woke up.
because literally he was in pain. So, like he had severe back pain. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like to talk.
Yeah, Dave, we do get Svengoolie up here. We do get Svengoolie.
Yeah,
We
there
used
was
to have
actually. So, yeah, sorry.
something called Horror Incorporated for years back in the day. I miss that. That's where you could see all those old school movies. Although I do want to see the new Godzilla King Kong movie.
I heard it's great. Have you seen Zero, Godzilla Zero?
Mm-mm.
You need to see that one. Um, that's it's called. Was it Zero?
Monster Zero?
No.
Am I missing a Godzilla movie recently that I haven't seen?
Yes, it came out. Godzilla minus one.
I haven't seen that
2023.
one yet.
2023. It's a Japanese. It's Japanese
Oh, okay.
that they don't speak in English in the movie. It's
That's what I
awesome,
figured.
and they use late 80s, early 90s.
Godzilla?
Yeah, the CGI and all that type of stuff.
Well, you know, that's their
Yeah.
God. That is their Godzilla. These Godzillas we're looking at are the American version.
Yeah, and basically it's called minus one because after World War II, Japan was wrecked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they finally got it back what they would consider zero, the city,
Right.
and then Godzilla attacks. So when
Well,
Godzilla
if it
attacks,
wasn't
it
Godzilla,
makes
it
the
was
city.
Rodan. If it wasn't
Yeah.
Rodan, it was friggin' the Gargantuas. I mean, come on. Who wasn't tearing up Tokyo?
Is that a Toho production? I don't know. I think it was.
That might be, yeah, that's probably a Toho, because I think Godzilla is owned by Toho.
But if you have not seen it, I would. We went to go to the movie theater to see it.
Right.
Um,
War of the Gargantuas. Yes. 66. Yes. So, okay. I saw
gorgeous. Gorgia is what they. Of course, Godzilla is Gorgia in Japanese. See, it says the 2023 Japanese kaiju film, directed and written and with visual effects by Takasaki Nomazaki, produced by Toho Studios and Robot Communications.
Okay.
Distributed by Toho. It's the 37th film in the Godzilla franchise, Toho's 33rd.
37, huh? I've only seen maybe 12.
Yeah, it's the fifth film in the franchise REIWA era. So.
Wow. Oh, did you notice in this new one?
So Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack 2001. Then Shin Godzilla 2016. Always Sunset on 3rd Street. So some of these don't even have Godzilla names. But I guess they're all in the era, or they're all storyline of Godzilla.
Okay. I think in this one, that the Kong and Godzilla one. I think they
Yeah.
got the Son of Kong in it. I think they actually put because they made a Son of Kong back in the 30s. And they made a Queen Kong too. So I wouldn't be shocked if they've got both in this new one. I think the little baby Kong is in this one.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that one I don't know. I got an app here where I can get all those movies on my Fire Stick. So maybe I'll just decide to watch it one day.
I could probably sit down and watch all the Godzilla movies.
You know what? It's warmer out now, so I probably wouldn't. But come fall or winter, hell yeah.
So, the Godzilla -1 had a $12 million budget. Had a $12 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
It made 112
in the first week.
No, total. It said over 112 million, becoming the fifth highest grossing Japanese film, and it also fifth highest grossing Japanese film, and it surpassed Shin Godzilla as the most successful Japanese Godzilla film.
Godzilla is still popular. Godzilla is still popular. Even the Americanized version.
Opening weekend, they made $11 million on opening weekend, so they made their money back on the first weekend.
Yeah, that's usually how it works.
Oh, you would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can watch those cheesy Godzilla movies, those cheesy like horror movies. I love watching those things. So
does my wife. My wife loves watching those cheesy horror movies.
If it's a cheesy kung fu and a cheesy monster movies, I can watch them. I don't.
Do you ever remember watching the movie called The Lift?
I never heard of it.
It was in the. I remember my brother and I rented it from Blockbuster Video for the weekend, and you know how like when you rent a certain amount of movies, they give you one that doesn't rent very well for free.
Yeah.
So The Lift was the one that did, and I can't remember the premise of it, but I just remember one part of the scene where this guy is leaning over like an elevator, a door, and the elevator's coming down, and the elevator cuts his head off, and you can see the head falling, but the graphics are so bad that you could tell it's like a wax head.
Oh God. Oh God.
So basically, the movie is so bad it's like a comedy. You know, it's just like.
It's so bad. It's so bad. You'll watch it anyway.
Yes,
you'll watch it all the way through, and then you'll regret watching it because you're like, God, that movie sucks.
That's an hour and a half. I'm never to get back in my life.
Yeah, that's 90 minutes out of my life I will never get back.
Yeah.
God, you know, Davey, I haven't seen them in years. If it's the one I'm thinking about. Scariest movie I ever saw, believe it or not. Unfortunately, as a kid, I made the mistake and saw The Exorcist.
I don't get scared.
I was like 8 years old, and I saw the unedited version of The Exorcist. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't get scared watching movies.
They don't scare me either. I just kind of you know it's going to happen. There may be a little shock value, but
the most disturbing movie I ever watched was on Netflix. Damn, I cannot think of the name of it right now. But it was a clown, white face with black, and he wore a black and white costume. Oh God, what was the name of that movie?
Kind of like The Nightmare Before Christmas.
No. Let me see. Let's see.
Phantasm?
Terrifier.
Never heard of it.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, I never heard that one.
Okay. This is probably probably one of the least disturbing scenes in the movie. And the sad thing about it is that they're making a third one. I turned it off after this, and I can take a lot. Terrifier the Clown, yeah, George. That's why I put the parent advisory up. He kidnapped a girl, hung her upside down, right? So her feet are up, and she's dangling upside down. She's nude. He takes a chainsaw, starting from her nether regions, cuts her in half.
That sounds like Saw.
It's much more disturbing than Saw.
Oh my God. God.
And then
they've literally run out of ways to kill people, haven't they?
George, I think it's more than gore because you can have. I don't mind gore. It's the way it was gory, and I think it was the way that he was killing people. I think that's what. But I did go back and watch the movie from start to end. He's one of those guys that doesn't. I don't want to give any spoilers, but he doesn't like nobody catches him, no one kills him in the movie or anything like that. Yeah. Well, no, it takes a lot for me to get, like I have a buddy of mine who can't watch anything with blood in it. I'm like, well, dude, that cuts out like 90% of movies.
I just get to the point where it's like, if you've seen enough movies like that, you're kind of like nothing shocks you.
Yeah.
So when it does happen, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, you knew that was going to happen. But
like my wife won't watch American Horror Story.
I have yet to watch American Horror Story.
And I don't know why. Hey, what up, East Coast? I have never seen that. The Shining. I mean,
that's more psychological than anything.
That's more like Japanese stuff. I don't get like Japanese horror doesn't do anything for me.
And they're all over the place with their horror. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. Netflix has got some treasures on it. One of the best horror movies, probably though, was The Cabin in the Woods.
I haven't seen that.
Evil Dead 2 was good. It was.
Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 1 was.
Evil Dead 2 knew what it was.
Evil Dead 2, you knew what was going on. It was just kind of like, you're just kind of amazed that it's like, Jesus, it's still going on. They found more victims. Wow.
really bad. Like,
oh my God.
Really bad graphics, or I'm not graphics, but special effects.
The special effects were terrible.
Yeah.
You know what? Pre-CGI, you just kind of look at things kind of like, oh my God, we've come a long way. We have, But hey, we got to wrap.
The Wall kind of technically was the lead singer of Pink Floyd going crazy.
Yeah, it was. He was cracking up. He was cracking up. But we got to cut this short. I got to get going here, brother.
Okay. I don't know what it is, but the longer we go, the more viewers we get.
You know what? That's weird.
We started the show with like 18. We're up to 35.
Yeah, that is weird. Thanks everybody for watching, but
yeah,
you guys coming at the weirdest times.
George, I can't tell you how much we appreciate the donations tonight.
Thank you for everything, George.
We really appreciate it. And I think somebody else gave a donation too, but I forget your name. I apologize for that. We appreciate everybody coming. Davey, appreciate you. Sarah, appreciate you. No Stop was the other one. He was
No Stop. Yes, that's the
appreciate you donating as well. No Stop.
Bob, Davey, Sarah, George.
Bob, the guy, our typical people who were here all the time. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you being here. This is something we just do because we enjoy it. So we really appreciate you guys coming here. We got a little off the rails towards the end of the night. We usually don't do free talk at the end of Vikings Vintage. It's usually just the history and that's it. The conversation that we had. The conversation we had tonight, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, this is what we do on Fridays. On Fridays, what we do is the first, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's football.
We talk Vikings. We talk
Football,
Vikings.
NFL,
And then
whatever.
after that, we let you guys come on and we just, whatever you guys want to talk about.
It's a free for all.
But this Friday, we're taking off. So we're probably going to have 3 shows in a week, which is a lot for us. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because we had the wrestling show. I'm going to get with Yogi, see if he can make an opening or make a, help with the background, help with some graphics on that. Then our vintage show, we probably do 76. That's the last Super Bowl season. We'll probably do that next week.
Yeah, we're coming up on 50 years, folks.
Yeah, and then the Friday Free for All. So that's
then the Friday Free for All. That's where you come in and just talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. So, and this parental advisory sticker is up the whole time on that Friday show.
Yeah, Sarah, I'm a night owl too. So
I did get a new job that actually pays more than the Microsoft job. So I am not going to be able to stay up as late. But I have to be work at 8, so I got to get up at 7. So I'll probably be going to bed around 1 or so because I don't need that much sleep.
You're on Central Time, right?
Yeah. So it's
okay, we'll just you're on Central Time, so we'll just watch it really close.
Yeah. Friday night though, I don't work weekends, so Friday night can be.
Friday then. Yeah. Friday, just sit back and listen to everybody bitch and moan.
Yeah. All right, guys. Like I said, I can't appreciate how much we enjoy you guys watching us. We appreciate everyone.
Thank you again, everybody. Thank you so much.
So until next time.
Vikings, let's win this game. Score Vikings, eliminate. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go